You're listening to The Pete Sheppard Show.
It's good to be back.
What do you think?
Well, listen, hockey's a different sport from the NBA. You can't compare the cultures because of the way the game is played. You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey. You can't. Like, the culture of our sport, you have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice. That's what fans are investing in. So for us, when we charge $1,500 for a ticket to come to Fort, fans know what they're getting.
PK Subban, baby. Wait till you see what a great take he had yesterday on Get Up. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Pete Sheppard Show here on the Coastal Sports Network. It is a Hump Day Wednesday. We got a great show lined up for you today. Lots of hot topics and takes. Let's get it going. Thanks for checking us out across the video platform, Monday through Friday, 7 to 10 a.m., or somewhere around there. On Twitter X, following me at PShep326. Across all our Facebook pages, on mine, and Tampa Joe's, one of the great sports bars in Southwest Florida, up in Tampa, hence Tampa Joe's, and also on the Coastal Sports Network. We're on YouTube, Rumble, Kick, CSN Florida, LinkedIn, Spotify, YouTube. Call or text the show, 727-858-6650. That is the number to call. We got a lot going on, a lot to discuss today. Alex Cora has poo-pooed what is happening at down the street over there from my house at Fenway South. Nothing to see here, no drama, nothing to see here. I hope he's right. We'll hear from Alex Cora a little bit later on in the show. We've got some big-time college football meetings happen today. This has kind of gone under the radar a little bit, but the SEC Mafia and the Big Ten Mafia, a.k.a. Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, their respective commissioners for the Big Ten and the SEC, will be meeting today in New Orleans to discuss the college football playoff format, amongst other things, expansion as well. We'll dive into that a little bit. And an interesting take from Matt Schick, who does the Sirius XM Big Ten Network radio show. Really, really interesting stuff. I think you're going to find it fascinating stuff that I've been talking about for the last couple of months. I hope people like Paul Feinbaum listen to what he has to say, because this SEC dominance, that shit is over. It's over. The playing field has been leveled. So we got some spring trading news. We got college football. We got some NFL news to tell you about. Florio had a story yesterday, and get ready. People are not going to like this, Angel Martinez, that Netflix reportedly wants to take over. Want to take over the NFL as far as CBS and Fox. I want to take it over. We'll get into that as well. Justin Turner, back to baseball, signs a one-year deal with the Cubbies for $6 million. Kind of upset about that a little bit. I hope the Red Sox made an inquiry. He would have been one of those guys great to have back on the team. Everybody's favorite ginger baseball player. And then we have the Four Nations title coming up tomorrow night. USA versus Canada at TD Garden. Mick Colagio will join me at 9:05. We'll get into that as well. Charlie McAvoy, not only is he not going to play, he's going to be out for the Bruins lineup for a couple of weeks. It looks like for the upper body injury, but I found out it was more of a shoulder thing. He had an infection. And earlier, Bill Sparrows from the Boston Herald and Bookies.com will join me at 8:30. Always insightful. And with that, we say good morning to Angel Martinez, and a beautiful day ahead. We actually might get some rain today, Angel. It has not rained. We had a residue of a sprinkle, if there is such a thing. Can you have a residue of a sprinkle? Kind of an oxymoron. That was last Friday. It lasted seriously about 30 seconds, and that was it. They keep saying we're going to get rain, we're going to get rain, we're going to get rain. Now, I know the rest of the country is freezing their respective tookuses off, especially my friends out from Minnesota to Montana, where it's negative 58 degrees in some areas this morning with the wind chill. So BOOHOO for us. However, I'm about the environment, Angel. Sometimes, it's like Eddie Murphy, back in the day. Karate man, bruise on the inside. I'm about helping the people when I can. And the incredible environmentalist that I can be, I care whether it rains in Southwest Florida or not, because I look out at my pond over there, and you know where it is.
Yep.
And it is so low, like I could probably walk across it. Almost. But we need the rain here. We don't need the snow. We need the rain here in Southwest Florida, right? We need it. It has been not ever complaining about the weather. It's been perfect tens basically the last, 10 days. It's been outstanding, as the weather down here usually is, 99% of the time, I think. But it has not rained. We have not seen droplet. We have not seen anything except for the sprinklers come on in the community. That's the only wetness we have seen at all. So I hope we get some rain today. They say 35, 40% chance. Anyway, that's my environmentalist tip for the day. But good morning, Angel Martinez. How are you? The big question being posed by the national media today is, can the NBA deal with having an international player as the quote-unquote face of the league? You know what I say to that? Do people really care about any sport as far as who is the face of the league? You either like the person or you don't. Is it really going to matter if Victor Wembanyama becomes the face of the NBA in a couple of years if he wins, or is it any different than Jason? I mean, unless you're like an extremist one way or the other. Do you care? I mean, in sports in general, just taking into account football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, obviously it's international stars, but that's like it's like they got nothing else to do instead of sitting there breaking down, which we'll get to PK Subban and the hockey, which is fantastic. But the big story this morning for a lot of people is because they're boring and they don't want to talk about hockey and baseball overall. And can the NBA survive with an international player? I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care who the face of the league is. I didn't care that Jerry West was at midcourt. The emblem. It's nice that Kobe is. That's stuff. I don't care. Do most people care about that stuff? Do you, Angel Martinez? You are Puerto Rican. Do you care who the face of the NBA is? If it's white, black, green, yellow, or for what country? Does it really make all that matter? Does it matter at all? Technically, Kyrie Irving is Australian. That's where he was born. Now he says he wants to play for Australia. By the way, Joel Embiid says he will never play for Indiana. We'll get to that too. But anyway, do you care about who the face of the league is? Does it really matter to you? And if it does, please tell. I want to know why. You don't have to, just agree. I'm just throwing the question out there. I just think most people in this country don't care. It's not a big deal who the face of the league is. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't think anybody cares. And in actuality, no one really is going to be that upset that they figure out like, oh, why aren't we the face of this or why aren't we the face of that? It makes no difference. And if they do, if people are that upset or up in arms because of it, then I don't know what else to freaking tell them. But to me, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, look at baseball back in the day. We had a lot, and I'm just throwing names out from Reds. I mean, Pedro Martinez, David Ortiz. There's a lot of Latinos out there that have been quote unquote the face of Major League Baseball for quite some time. You can go all the way back to guys like Roberto Clemente, the late great Roberto Clemente. And so many others. How about Ichiro? Look at and right now, look at out in Los Angeles. Why am I having a brain cramp? What's his name? I mean, he's probably the face of Major League Baseball right now, right? Is he not? I'm talking. Why am I having a brain cramp?
Big Papi?
No, out in the Dodgers right now. The pitcher and what's his name?
Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
He's the face. Is he not? Is Shohei Ohtani not the face of Major League Baseball right now?
Of course he is. He's definitely the face of baseball.
Imagine that, a Japanese player. Imagine that being the face. So I don't know why people who talk about the NBA get all up in arms. That look in hockey, it can be most of the time it's been a Canadian, quote unquote, the face of the league. Nobody cares. I care about my Bruins players not getting hurt. That's what I care about, even though I'm looking forward to tomorrow. But I mean, we've had this. I don't know why people who talk about the NBA get all up in arms and all like if it's not an American player to be the face of the NBA, that something's wrong. I don't get it. I don't get it. They don't seem to apply that type of logic or discussion to all the other sports. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's no way anybody really cares about it. On top of the NBA and how they continue to just windfall in the wrong direction. And the NBA is just trying to do whatever they possibly can to pretty much save face after an abomination was the in-season tournament. And then everybody continues to talk about the not NBA All-Star game.
Well, if we could scroll, it's 2 down or 3 down, Angel. PK Subban, one of the only Montreal Canadiens between him and Guy Lafleur that I actually liked in my life. I love this guy. He's a great analyst. So he went on Get Up yesterday, weighs in on the NHL about the comparisons between there was the All-Star Weekend in the NBA and what is going on now in the NHL. And this is absolutely fantastic. You heard a little bit in the open, but here's the full video yesterday. I think this is absolutely terrific. Take note, NBA.
Matthew Tkachuk, you got Austin Matthews. Let me think. Charlie McAvoy. He sat out against Sweden. Brady Tkachuk there was hurt there in that period. Didn't come back. They did say precautionary is the reason why they didn't bring him back. So how does this affect this big matchup Thursday against Canada?
I think all players will be playing. I mean, Charlie McAvoy, there's some questions around him, but I think you can expect to see Austin Matthews.
I want to play that afterwards. Pause that. It's the one below. That's one below the Netflix story.
Oh, hang on.
I want to start with that one. And then we'll get back to his comments about tomorrow night's game.
All right.
Heard what Giannis says. He says, hey, I think what we should do is, let's say, the world take on the American players in the NBA. Kind of somewhat sort of what are you doing in the NHL? What do you think?
Well, listen, hockey's a different sport from the NBA. You can't compare the cultures because of the way the game is played. You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey. You can't. Like, the culture of our sport, you have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice. That's what fans are investing in. So for us, when we charge $1,500 for a ticket to come to fans know what they're getting. Cale Makar, the best defenseman in the world, wasn't in the lineup for this game. This was the most viewed game that we've had in years. And you see it, it's because it's not just based on the skill and talent. It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you. I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money. What, you're injured? Well, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference. In hockey, we play hurt. We play injured. That is the culture of the sport. It's always been that way. So you want to talk about the business, the CBA, fans get all of that. But what do fans resonate with? They resonate with what's real. You got to fight sometimes for your country. You got to compete. You got to go out there and leave it on the ice because those people are paying the price of admission. So fans know whether our stars are on the ice or not, they're getting their money's worth. The NBA has that issue that they got to work on. You got to create a better culture for your players. It starts with the leaders. This issue, there was no issue when Jordan was around. There was no issue when Kobe was around. There's no issue when Sidney Crosby is around. There's no issue when Wayne Gretzky was around because those are true leaders. They lead by example. Sidney Crosby, Hockey Canada, those players, both Canada and U.S., it was the players that did that for the Four Nations. It's not the league. The league set it up, but the players went out there and decided and said, you know what, boys? We're all in. When is the NBA going to do that? Because, I haven't sat down and watched the NBA consistently since Kobe. Since Kobe has died, I have not sat down and watched the NBA consistently. I love basketball, love the players. I think LeBron's great. I think KD's great. Steph Curry, love watching them. But you got to be on the court. You got to be there, and when you're there, you got to go all in. The fans got to feel that they're getting their money's worth. And right now, there's a big difference between what the NHL's doing with those events and what the NBA's doing. Four Nations works because the players are all in.
Oh. Excellent. Oh, excellent.
I'm going to stand up. Now, the only criticism I have of anything that he said, and he's dead on balls accurate, 99.9%. However, this Four Nations tournament is excellent. The All-Star game in the NHL, besides baseball, where it used to mean something, and at least baseball, it still kind of sort of means something to a degree. It's probably the best All-Star game that's left. the NHL All-Star Game used to mean a lot in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And maybe, and then in the early 90s, things started to change. But I'll tell you why. People, I'm 58 years old, so I remember this like it was yesterday. It was back in the early 80s. Mike Liut was a great goaltender for the Hartford Whalers and then for the St. Louis Blues. Or the St. Louis Blues, I should say, then the Hartford Whalers. He won the MVP of the All. They used to be the Prince of Wales Conference versus the Campbell Conference. And I'm going to get into more of this with Mick Colaggio coming up at 9:05 because the All-Star Game meant something back then. Mike Liut, a goalie, was actually the MVP in the early 80s of the All-Star Game. It used to be the Prince of Wales versus Campbell. Basically, Prince of Wales East, Campbell Conference West. Okay? Mike Liut, I think they won the Campbell Conference because he was with the Blues, won 5-3. And he was named the MVP of the league. I can't even imagine, back then, it meant something. The All-Star Game. However, the NHL All-Star Game became a joke in the late, really mid to late 90s to the early 2000s. They too were going and we were getting games that were 19-9, stuff like that. There was no defense, no goalie. They weren't allowed checking. I mean, so that's why the NHL had to change to the 3-on-3 and all that stuff, because the NHL All-Star Game became almost just as much of a joke as the NBA All-Star Game did. For a few years. It was ridiculous. It was like, why even have goalies? I mean, seriously, you go back and look at the NHL All-Star Game scores. Look at the crescendo over the years from the 70s and 80s to the late 90s and early 2000s. It went from respectable 5-3 game. There was hitting, people cared, to 19-9, stuff like that. It did happen. So it became just as much as a farce as the NBA All-Star Game did. But now they have figured it out. They've been proactive, and this Four Nations thing is absolutely fantastic. I was not sure. I told you the same. I was not sure how into it I was going to be. I wasn't sure how this was going to resonate amongst the fans in all these countries, and it has been an absolute kick-ass event. Not just for United States and Canadians and Finns and Swedish fans, I think around the world. The ratings have been through the roof for all the games, and the fact they have 2 original 6 cities that are hosting this tournament, in Montreal and Boston, it doesn't get any better. And I'm telling you, tomorrow night, the world is going to be glued to that game coming up at 8 o'clock on ABC, and I think Sean McDonough, thank God, is going to be calling the game. He is the best. Jerry says, always wanted PK on the Bruins. I'm with you. He killed us a couple of times, but there's only 2 Montreal Canadiens that I ever wanted to be a Boston Bruin: Guy Lafleur and PK Subban. I love PK, always have. Even went to Nashville, towards the end of his career. There's just a presence about that guy. He resonates leadership and some great stuff. That was some great comments. He made. Like I said, 99.9% of what he said, I absolutely agree with. But there was a time for a few years in the NHL where the All-Star Game became just as much as a farce as the NBA. I didn't want to see 15-7, absolutely no defense, no goalies. You couldn't check. This is balls to the wall hockey. And I, for one, cannot wait till tomorrow night. Who do I think is going to win? 6-5 and pick them. And that's what it is. Both are -110. Charlie McAvoy is going to be out with that shoulder injury for a couple of weeks. He's not going to play tomorrow night. So he's been replaced by Quinn Hughes. Now, this is how great the NHL is, okay? Quinn Hughes. And some of you might say, who's that? Well, he was last year's Norris Trophy winner, which is the best defenseman in the league. He wasn't even on the team until McAvoy got hurt. He wasn't even on the team. He plays with the Vancouver Canucks, okay, out in Gabe Morency country. But he was the Norris Trophy winner last year for the best defenseman in the NHL. He didn't even make the team until Charlie couldn't play. So that's Mike Sullivan doing a great job and with that. But what does that tell you? And then you have the farce that was the NBA All-Star Weekend. It just goes to show you the pressure is on. And look, if they can ever arrange it, the NBA against the world, I think would be pretty cool. People in the NBA against the world. Now, you say the world, you'd have like SGA would have to play for the world. Kyrie Irving says he wants to play for Australia, so he would play for the world. Joel Embiid doesn't want to play. He'll play for anybody except for the Indiana Pacers. We'll get to that in a minute. But, I think the NBA has to hopefully figure something out, because this is absolutely, it was ridiculous and embarrassing what we saw. All the player comments that we played the last couple of days, Angel, they all say the same thing, basically. Even if they didn't say it, I mean, Draymond Green basically flat out said it sucks. This isn't basketball. Too many, 18-minute breaks, at halftime. Again, I didn't watch it. I'm not sure where all these breaks happened. Seems to be at the end of the half or the end of the games, and all this ridiculous nonsense that goes on. By the way, I read a report yesterday that the people off the record at the Super Bowl all admit they made a bad call with Kendrick Lamar. Bad call. Instead of having, and I meant to bring this up, but dumbass me didn't bring this up. Usually you have the theme for the Super Bowl, at least partly, it's got to be the city where it's from. Why was there no jazz at all? I mean, you think about that. We're in New Orleans. There's no jazz at all. Lil Wayne is, I guess, one of the few highlights I saw on Saturday Night Live. That awful, awful 50-year anniversary. And let me tell you something. It fucking sucked. It was awful. The exception of maybe one or two little bits. The rest of it was just trash. And I mean, some of the music that they were talking about and they were singing about others, it was so boring and so bad. I fast forwarded through so much, it was just useless. But Lil Wayne probably stole the show. He did a great job in it. He's from New Orleans. Why not have him? How do you have a Super Bowl in a city famous for a genre of music like jazz, and you don't have any of it? Does that make any sense to anybody? When it was up in Orlando, you had Tom Petty theme, Prince, down in Miami. I mean, every Super Bowl usually has a theme or a part theme of somebody who's local, a local artist in that particular city. The NFL doesn't do a lot of things wrong, but they screwed that halftime show up big time, because that sucked too. And I went back and watched, and it's like, it's unlistenable. You can't listen to it. I can't watch it. I didn't think there's any creative thing. I just didn't get. Where was Lil Wayne? Where was any type of jazz at all? Even modern jazz, anything, nothing. It was terrible. But and they alienated a lot of their audience. I tell you that at halftime. Like I said, I don't watch halftime shows overall. I don't give a shit. But I'm saying the ones that did and are praising, they think that was good. Are you serious? First of all, I could barely understand anything. Number one, the acoustics were not good. It just was. You want to have a show like that? Have Kendrick Lamar for 10 minutes and then move on to other people, especially people who are from New Orleans, and then do that. But anyway, I know I'm going off the deep end here a little bit. Nevertheless,
you know what? No, good. Two good points. One is, and that's the reason why I didn't watch SNL because there was no way you could recreate of what's been done for the last 50 years, and then what's been going on, just how SNL had lost the way they've been to me, just in my opinion.
I want you to finish your point, but the problem is, and I told you, I remember the 25th anniversary edition. Mm-hmm. As soon as it was available, I went out and bought it on VHS at the time, VHS. It was phenomenal. You know why? Because they reran skits, all the skits in their entire, or a bunch of them from the 70s up at the time until the late 80s or early 90s. They ran it wasn't like, the only time they ran old skits, they did like a montage. You'd hear 5 seconds of Chris Farley, 5 seconds of Lorraine Newman. The rest of it was all shit. It really sucked. That's what made the 25th anniversary so special, is that they ran bits. And I'm not saying you run all the bits from the 70s and the 80s and the Chris Farley, but you could have just filled up a whole show with that. And that's why you're better off. If you want to see this SNL 50-year anniversary, go to YouTube, not YouTube TV. Go to YouTube and just go. You can find montages in 30 minutes, 40 minutes long of all the great skits in a row. And that should have been it. It was awful. Paul Simon, who I love, awful in the beginning. What's her name? Sarah Carpenter. Do I even know who she is? Is she related? The whole thing sucked from the get-go. It sucked. It was not entertaining at all. It was awful. I know Bill Sparrows feels the same way. I knew he was going to join me next hour as well. But Lorne Michaels should be embarrassed by that, really, because the 25th anniversary was so well done, and that you expect a lot more, even though nobody knows a lot of the current cast at all, and certainly SNL has lost its luster, Angel. But no, continue. I would rather have you watch Aaron Rodgers' stupid Enigma documentary than that.
No, and that's the whole reason behind it, was what I was going to say. The last 10 years, have not even a little bit longer than that. SNL just lost its luster, like the way they used to be. And I understand it's, we're talking about our time and the comedians and the people that were there compared to now. But there's no way that SNL could have just gone completely different from what they used to do before. Their skits, the writers, they used to be like phenomenal. It was a great show to watch. But that was the reason why I didn't want to watch it, because even when you saw some of the previews that were teasing out there, I'm like, what? This is what we're going to watch? Man. So I was good. I had no need for it.
No, I did it, for purposes of the show, and wanted to be thorough in my sucky analysis, because it was a sucky performance. It was suckily produced. Lil Wayne was one of the few highlights of the whole thing, music-wise. The rest of them sucked on the whole, and I don't know what that bullshit was. And they were all trying to do these. I'll tell you, the other one was good. Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler did about 5 or 6 minutes, so I was pretty emotional. He did a great job. Adam Sandler did a great job. Lil Wayne did a good job, great job, and that's really about it. There was that one sketch with what's her name being abducted by aliens, which has been an ongoing thing with her and Jake Gyllenhaal back in the day, even though he wasn't there. That was funny. Black Jeopardy was not funny. Black Jeopardy is usually hysterical. And they had Eddie Murphy do. I mean, they didn't utilize Eddie Murphy at all. They didn't. There were people that were in the audience that were far more entertaining than the people who were on stage trying to do this stuff. Black Jeopardy is usually hysterical, and it was like total dud.
Are they afraid?
A few episodes that's fun, and then people got all up in arms about Tom Hanks, because he played a character, a shit-kicking hillbilly with a MAGA hat on, and he wouldn't shake what's his name, the black guy's hand. People, I don't know if you realize this, but that is an ongoing skit. Tom Hanks did that like 3 or 4 years ago on Black Jeopardy, the segment Black Jeopardy. The same thing, where he gave these goofy answers and. Typical hillbilly shit-kicking hick fashion. And the same thing, he didn't want, and people got, maybe I missed something. I'm like, people, and they call, I'm not watching any Tom Hanks movies anymore. I can't do this. He did Saving Private Ryan. I'm like, you fucktards. This was an ongoing sketch. This is like 3 or 4 years old. What are you people? My God, do some research. It's just like a church lady, it's an ongoing skit, Same thing with a few other, Fernando Lamaris, when Billy Crystal, you look marvelous, we really do. And Angel, I must tell you, I love your dimples when you smile, you do that goofy thing. That kind of, that was funny, and then Tom Hanks comes on Black Jeopardy and plays some shit-kicking hick who doesn't want to shake a black person. That's all, that was funny. When I first saw it a few years ago, I thought it was funny. No, that was a remake of that, and it's the same. People all up in arms. I'm like, that's 3 years old. What are you people talking about? Unless I missed something, unless I didn't see something he said during the show that, which I don't think it got, I don't think got overly politicized. I could be wrong. The parts that I saw, and from Black Jeopardy, him being the contestant, nothing. That's an old sketch. It's crazy to me. All right. Before we go to break. Right on. Now I want to get back to what PK Subban said about the United States and Canada coming up from Get Up yesterday. What we can expect in that game, where PK is expecting that matchup tomorrow night in the title game between the United States and Canada.
It was me, the physicality and how they controlled the neutral zone against Canada. Very difficult to do. You think about McKinnon, McDavid, Sidney Crosby. Those are tough players to contain. They did a masterful job against Team Canada managing the neutral zone. And if you control the middle of the ice, you control the game. They're going to have to do that. And for a young, inexperienced team, which they are, they look like a veteran team. And for me, they were the more physical team. The Kachuk brothers were running shop. They came into Montreal, 100 years of history there in hockey. 100 years of history, Canada has been the best country at hockey. They came in and said, no. Things are changing. There's something different in the air, and they showed out. You know, listen, when it's all said and done, if Canada does not win on Thursday, if they get outmanned and out-physicaled on Thursday night, there's going to be huge questions of why this team was made the way it was. Tom Wilson was left off this roster. He is the only player in Canada that can play at that level and brings the physicality with it. They're going to be asking more of their players on Thursday. I think they got it in the room to do it, but they're going to have to dig deep because this USA team is no joke.
Well, and the game is in Boston, so you know tempers are going to be flaring there. We remember the last game there, with 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. Do you think Canada is going to come out with that type of fury and start the game off like this?
Well, they got to. They're not going to have a choice. These Kachuk brothers ain't letting anybody off the hook. They're going to come. Their knees are going to be bent. There's going to be froth coming out of their mouths, and they're going to rip the gates right off TD Garden. This is on home soil. You go back to 2010, the last time Canada won. Canada loses to U.S. in the round robin. Sidney Crosby scores the golden goal. Canada wins. Everybody's happy. Well, the table's set. Sidney Crosby against the U.S. didn't have his best game. Bounced back. You saw the physicality against Mikael Granlund there to get the empty net. He's a gamer. He's ready to go, and the table is set. But now it's on U.S. soil. Out of all places, Boston, TD Garden. Listen, the Prime Minister was there at the game at the Bell Center. I don't know if the president's going to show up, but everybody in the world will be watching this game on Thursday. It's definitely, if you don't think it's going to be as physical, you're clinically insane.
Okay.
Now, the only thing that I'll disagree with just a little bit is, are they going to come out and do? I mean, what happened in the first matchup with the fights and everything? I mean, one of those was kind of sort of they kind of knew what was going on. I don't think there's going to be that kind of fighting in the game. It could happen through natural causes. You know, check here, defending your teammate there, that type of thing. But I don't think anybody, Angel, is going to risk getting tossed in this game early because of fights like that. You know, I mean, if referees are pretty liberal about letting the guys go when they feel it's necessary, but also you don't want to do anything stupid in a huge game like this that means so much to so many of these guys, both the Americans and the Canadians and hockey fans in general. You don't want to see. I don't want to see Matt. I don't want to see Kachuk, any of them, get thrown out of the game because of a stupid penalty or an instigation call or a misconduct. So I don't think we're going to see that. If there are fights in this game, and there'll be pushing and shoving and all that stuff, and I think it'll be physical. I want to see. I'm more concerned, or I'm happiest when guys like Charlie McAvoy blast, Sidney Crosby into the boards, blast Connor McDavid into the boards on clean hits. I mean, those are two of the best hits I have seen all year, old school stuff. And it's unfortunate he won't be able to play tomorrow night or for a while for the Bruins for a couple of weeks. But we'll get into that and a whole lot more. Bill Sparrows, who wrote a great column, I've retweeted it. He interviewed Scotty Bowman yesterday or the day before about the Canadians and the United States taking over hockey and surpassing Canada once and for all. Because the Canadian team hasn't won the Stanley Cup in quite some time. Not that matters. Plenty of Americans on Canadian teams, but I think Bill will be on at 8:30 to talk about that and a whole lot more. When we come back, some baseball news to tell you about from Fenway South. Lou Maloney and Tom Caron on Nesson as well yesterday with some interesting stuff. Alex Cora. Oh, and before I forget, last night I do want to mention, I meant to do it at the top of the show. My apologies. My good friends, Dave and Marie. Marie slaved all day making homemade meatballs that were absolutely unbelievable. So it was myself, Dave, my friends Brian, Jim, and Lou Merlone came over my friend's house last night, and we had an absolute ball. We feasted on antipasto and meatball sandwiches that were absolutely to die for. And then Lou and I kicked ass in pool. We went 3-0 as a team, and then I went 5-1 overall. But it was a wonderful night with my friends Dave, Marie, Brian, Jim, and Lou Merlone came over, and we had an outstanding time for a few hours. It was great. It was just the five of us. But Marie, thank you for making the delicious antipasto and the meatballs, which were just ridiculous, over the top ridiculous. Yes, Angel.
How does the biggest meatball here not have a meatball invitation?
You're always welcome. You want to make the 2-hour drive down this way? We'll do something next time you come down. We'll definitely do something. But it was great having Lou around. We had a lot of fun discussions last night about a lot of things that that we talked about on the show and some other stuff. So all good fun. But thank you to all my dear friends, Dave, Marie, Brian, Jim, and Lou Merlone. We had an outstanding night, outstanding food, beautiful weather, good cocktails, great cigars, and finished in some great pool. I got to tell you, we all made some unbelievable shots.
Nice.
I must say, it was very, very cool. All right, quick break. When we come back, we'll get into some baseball stuff. We'll get to what's happening down the street from me at Fenway South. Some Alex Cora, nothing to see here. Everything's cool. Everybody's hunky-dory. Going to sing Kumbaya and whatever. And we're all going to watch, the championship game on Thursday. And yada. Anyway, all that stuff. So more about hockey, more about what's going on in spring training. College football meetings going on today, some serious ones in New Orleans, which I'll get to in a second when we come back. And Netflix, a report out there, they want to take over the NFL, CBS and Fox. All of that coming up as part of the Pete Sheppard Show here on a Hump Day Wednesday on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey, everybody. It's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey. Why don't you take a minute? When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
The Pete Sheppard Show. It's fun for the whole family, if it's dysfunctional.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, listen, hockey's a different sport from the NBA. You can't compare the cultures because of the way the game is played. You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey. You can't. Like, the culture of our sport, you have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice. That's what fans are investing in.
PK Subban on Get Up yesterday. Outstanding stuff. Great from him. Talking about what the NBA should be doing, comparing the two, and they're at least the NBA's All-Star Weekend compared to the Four Nations tournament that is going on. Welcome back to the Pete Sheppard Show. The championship game will be played tomorrow night at the Boston Garden. It is going to be outstanding. Over 10 million viewers, 10.1 million in North America alone. Forget the world tuned into the game the other night on Saturday, and I can only imagine what the viewership is going to be. Everybody is going to be locked in, or anybody that's a sports fan, even if you're just a casual hockey fan, you're going to be locked into this because it is going to be, I think it's going to live up and be an outstanding hockey game. Again, Charlie McAvoy can't play. He's got an upper body injury. I think it's a shoulder injury. He's going to be out not only for this game, but for a couple of weeks. But Quinn Hughes has been, Mike Sullivan has summoned him from Vancouver. The reigning Norris Trophy winner, which is the best defenseman in hockey. He didn't even make the team initially. So this is why when people talk about the difference, another difference in the NHL, all right? A lot of these guys, they make arrangements. You know, you're not going to play if you weren't involved in the tournament. They could have been off, like the big criticism about, well, you can't just, LeBron James, just because LeBron says he doesn't want to play, this happened, things are hurt. You can't just go get anybody else because everybody's on vacation. That's not true. That's not true. Anything would have been better than watch LeBron in street clothes take pictures and tell people an hour before the game when he probably knew 3 days before the game that he wasn't going to play. Yep. So, again, it's another difference. It's another bad look for the NBA when you're the face of the league and LeBron James pulls that shit. And then Quinn Hughes, the reigning Norris defenseman winner, Norris Trophy winner for best defenseman, boom, right there. Mike Sullivan calls, bang. One of the best defensemen in the league, doesn't even make the team. Until now. And watch. He will be a difference maker in this. I wish Charlie was playing, but Quinn Hughes is an excellent hockey player from the Vancouver Canucks, and outstanding stuff. All right. Andrew, what did you want to say? Anything else you wanted to chime in with?
No. Other than when Mick comes on, end up replaying that one with PK, because that was, freaking dead on. That is outstanding. It's got to be at least right now the video segment of the year. It has to be.
one of them, and it's early in the year. We get it, but yeah, that's absolutely one of them. I want to switch over to football, and then I'll get back to hockey and basketball. Because Stephen A. had some interesting thoughts about an international player being the face of the league. Apparently, that's a big topic nationally today. I just don't think most people care. I really don't. In any sport, I don't think people care who the face of the league is in any sport. I don't think it's all that relevant that the league is going to survive. Okay, if we could scroll down, Angel, right under or a little bit on this, and Alex Cora. As we get into what's happening at Fenway South, shutting down the notion of any tension between Devers and Bregman and the team and distractions and all that stuff. Here is Alex Cora yesterday at Fenway South, and hopefully this is the end of it, but I get the feeling that it may not be. But here we go. Here's Alex Cora yesterday discussing the whole situation. If in case you missed it, Rafael Devers, wait, can you stop it, Angel, a second? Replay. Rafael Devers said a couple days ago that he did not want to play. He didn't want to DH full time. He's the third baseman. Okay, here's Alex Cora.
It's the big leagues, right? And we're going to take the best 26 guys to Texas. And Rafi, I guarantee you, Rafi Devers is one of the best players that we have.
Are there things he can do to kind of help his case to reclaim that third base job, or is it more just about how the roster?
Like I said, we will decide when we decide. But there's a few things that Flo has recognized that he needs to do better. We always talk about going to his left. That's something that is very important for him, to keep evolving as a third baseman. The arm, we got to get him right. He's accurate. Actually, I look at the numbers. I don't know, probably you guys know that. In October, he's only made one error. Only one, and I don't know how many series he's played, so he's locked in, right, in that aspect. But and the other one, Alex actually touched something with him when they were taking grounders a few days ago about the mechanics, and if he's try to do this, is this going to help you? And he actually executed. So it's fun to watch, man. It's the communication between them is good, and we'll take care of all that stuff whenever we have to.
Have you seen Rafi's initial, distaste for potential for a change? Can that be awkward for Bregman? He's the new guy here, and now
it didn't look that way yesterday at the house. I'll tell you. They were talking for 45 minutes. So things like this happen, right? Obviously, we play in this market, and it's big. I think it happened in New York a few days ago, right? And guys have their ideas. They're proud. And they say the things that they do, but then at the end, like I said yesterday, it's not about Alex or Rafi or AC, right? It's about the Boston Red Sox.
All right, I don't know what he means about New York. All that happened in New York was Giancarlo Stanton is probably not going to be ready. Not sure what he means by what happened in New York. Did I miss something? I'm not sure. All right, so Alex Cora says, that's okay, nothing to see. I'm still wondering, Alex Bregman, he said talked with Rafi yesterday for half an hour. Was a translator there too? Because Rafi doesn't speak a lot of English, not that I've ever heard. And that's fine. I'm just wondering if you talked with Bregman. And I don't know, maybe Bregman's bilingual and I just don't know. But otherwise, that seems like a half hour, 45-minute conversation. That could have been interesting. I hope it was. Meanwhile, Angel, if we could scroll down again, our buddy Lou Maloney yesterday on Tristan Casas, who many are calling Skipper Casas, expands on Rafi belonging at third base. So this is Tom Caron and Lou Maloney yesterday on this. This is right under. It's just a couple down under the show. Angel.
Yeah, let me go back up.
Yep. It was like 3 down. So Tristan Casas, who's one of the first basemen for the Red Sox, from Plantation, Florida, by the way, and former number 1 pick by the Red Sox. So he talks about why Rafi belongs at third base.
This should be interesting.
We mentioned Bregman. He's going to make this team better defensively wherever he is. And we don't know where that'll be. Could be second, could be third. We heard Rafael Devers yesterday say, I want to be at third base. That's my position. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I completely agreed with him. I think that he's the third baseman of this franchise for the time, a long time to come. And he's I don't know if there's a third baseman in the league that I would take over him. And his defense is constantly getting better every single year. That was the knock when I came up, that he was bad defensively. And then I see him come and make some barehanded plays, pick it in the bag, diving all over, rolling bodies, throwing from his butt. I mean, he's just all over the place. And yeah, he'll boot a routine play. And I think that's why he gets docked so heavily. But he plays hard, and he really sets the tone out there at third base. And I want him on that position this year and for the next 10 as well. We'll see how the legs hold up, if the bat's elite enough to. But man, I think for this year, I think it makes the most sense.
We mentioned Bregman. Right, he's going to make this team better defensively wherever.
Being the good teammate and all that stuff. But he's led the league in errors the last 5 years. 5 or 6 years. It's been, he's not, you say you don't know a better defensive third baseman. Are you kidding me? Just go through the league. He's been the worst. So that means everybody else, all other 31 starters are better. If we could scroll down again, Angel, this one's right under the show. This is more, as somebody in the Section 10 podcast tweeted out. Jared Carrabis hosts this on his podcast and formerly of Barstool. He calls on manager Casas wanting Rafi to stay at third. Here's more.
Did you hear what Devers said yesterday about wanting to stay at third and not DHing? And kind of, I'm curious, one, if you heard it, and two, if you feel like that's something you have to maybe navigate in the clubhouse between him and Bregman, or I mean, I know you're a younger guy comparatively, but how will you maybe navigate that and how approach that in the clubhouse?
I think it's Rafi Devers' position. I think he's the third baseman, and at that point, that's where it stands. And he's done it for a really long time now, and I think he's only getting better at that position. I think his defense is getting better every single year. We don't know what the future holds, but we know it holds Rafi Devers. So I think he's got to play defense. It's going to keep him athletic, and he's going to hit because of him being at third base. He doesn't know any other position. He doesn't want to play any other position, and he's going to fight for it, even if it's with any of the younger guys, any new guy. I mean, I think he's the best third baseman in the league. I wouldn't take anybody over him. So I think he should play third base. Yeah.
So you think Bregman should play second? Rafi plays third.
I think Bregman should play second base. Yeah. I think. He's going to make the transition well. I think he's athletic enough to, and I think Trevor, is going to play an awesome shortstop.
All right, manager Casas right there. Glad he thinks Bregman belongs at second base and not third, and whatever. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, for him not saying the generic answers about. And we always say we want athletes to speak their mind, speak the truth, and I get that. But I'm really surprised. I bet you Alex Cora is not too happy with a couple of those answers. I think the right response out of him or anybody would be, it's up to Alex. He's a manager. He decides who plays where and where they hit in the lineup. Because what you think of Rafael Devers on the record, Tristan, is delusional because he's one of the worst third basemen in the league. Fact. Absolute fact. And you can go over every single third baseman that projected starter. And I promise you that more guaranteed, all of them or most of them, I know most of them have a better defensive record than they do Rafi. Now, he's got a terrific bat. There's no getting around that. Okay? But it's ridiculous to say he's the best third baseman in the league and you would take him over anybody. That's foolish. But I know you're trying to be the good teammate, so I get it. But I just don't agree with that kind of stuff.
Alex Cora seems like a no-nonsense type manager, at least from what I've seen. But are teammates now afraid of speaking out? And it's not like they're speaking out in a negative way, but just like saying something about their teammate. Like, I think in my opinion, he should be at third. I mean, are we at that point now that we can't even say something about our own teammates?
Well, no, I mean, you can say it, but I mean, it's not really him saying he's the best defensive third base. Okay, delusional as that is, I don't mind that. But to sit there and say, I think Alex Bregman should play second.
No, right. And
that's like, nobody cares what you think. You're not the manager. He's got a hard enough time playing first base. Let me tell you that. which is probably the easiest of all the positions in the infield. So Tristan, you stick with learn how to play first base better.
No, that's what I mean. Meaning that, not saying because he was kind of flowering up, the third baseman there. What I'm saying is that why couldn't he just say, like, for me, just for an example, yeah, he could be a good third baseman, but why can't he transition over to second? Like, why can't you say something about another player on your team without just trying to say, no, he belongs there on third?
No, and the other thing, I mean, just look. We played it yesterday. Schwarber and the three other Philly players that we played, they all said the same thing: team. Doesn't matter where we hit in the lineup, where we play, wherever the manager wants us to play, we're going to play. That's what it should be. Here's Eduardo Perez, by the way, from MLB Network, talking about the Red Sox situation with Rafi.
This is not the way that you want to be able to start off a big league camp with your quote-unquote best player not on board with what the organization wants and the team wants him to do. And when you have a player that's making over $300 million, when you have a player that has raked and feels that he has a voice and has not been communicated so during the offseason as much as the conversation they had last Saturday was the first in his indication of the press conference. And he clearly indicated, no, I'm going to be at third base. And to be frank with you, Steve, I just did not like the body language that he was making. Like, are they serious?
That frown,
really
remember? The frown yesterday.
My 8th percentile range and my arm strength of 48th percentile is not good enough to be a championship team at third base? The answer is yes.
All right, I'm stopping it. Hang on. I'm going to replay. I want everybody to listen to this part again.
I just did not like the body language that he was making. Like, are they serious? Are they really thinking that my 8th percentile range and my arm strength of 48th percentile is not good enough to be a championship team at third base? The answer is yes. You're going to get better with Alex Bregman at third base. You have already sealed your deal as far as economically, so it's not going to hinder what you're going to get on the paycheck if you go to the DH position. It's going to make the team better. This is where not only Alex Cora basically said, look, the name on your chest is not Devers, it's Red Sox. We're going to do what's best for the Red Sox.
Yepers.
I have a feeling Big Papi is going to get involved in this one too. That's what I would also do as far as communicating with Rafael Devers, what's best for the team, because he had to do it at one point in his career at first base, move over to the DH spot to make the team better. You're going to have, and we're going to see more voices, maybe behind the scenes, get involved with this. But right now, it is not a great start. But the best team is definitely with Alex Bregman at third base, Devers at DH, depending on what happens with Campbell at second.
Eduardo Perez is one of my favorite people in all of Major League Baseball. He is always very succinct and tells it like it is, and he is excellent. Now, I don't know if we talked about David Ortiz getting involved. At least I think I brought it up yesterday, and I brought it up last night to Lou. We were playing pool, and I know I'm trying to find the cut. That question was asked to Alex Cora yesterday, and he, Angel, did not like it. Didn't like it. He basically snapped at the reporter who asked, and I understand why it was asked. It should be asked. They basically said, and I'm just paraphrasing, I don't need any outside help. This is my team. I understand Alex Cora being defensive, but you know what? When push comes to shove, hey, I wouldn't mind Big Papi coming in and talking to him at all. If Alex and others cannot reach him, I mean, you got to make him listen to reason. I'm just going by over the years of my lifetime watching the Red Sox. Jim Rice was a DH a lot. I mean, he was a better than average left fielder, but obviously he was an unbelievable hitter. But he DH'd a good chunk of his career too. Played left field, but DH'd as well. I mean, you got to remember, there was a time on the Red Sox we had Carl Yastrzemski, Jim Rice, Dwight Evans, Fred Lynn, and even back and Ben Oglivie back before they traded him to Milwaukee. I mean, they had a plethora of all-stars on the Red Sox, a bunch of them outfielders. They couldn't all play. You know, sometimes Yaz would DH. I'm talking about in the 70s. Then Jim would DH. And, defensively, Yaz was certainly a much better defensive player than Jim was. But I'll tell you what, as far as Jim Ed Rice playing that wall, nobody better. You did not get a ball off that wall many times and got a double out of it. I can tell you that. He was dead on balls throwing it, whether it was Denny Doyle back in the day or Jerry Remy or Lou Merlone or whoever. There was always a chance to get him to throw somebody out at second. He had a lot of outfield assists, more than people I think realize in his career. But so I mean, guys move from D. It happens all the time. It's a perfect example with Poppy. Don Baylor back in the day, another one. And Don was a great player, wonderful, wonderful person. Helped the Red Sox get to the World Series in '86. But he will always be remembered, Angel, on that cold April night at Fenway, where Roger Clemens was on his way, we didn't know at the time, striking out 20 to set a major league record at the time. He actually did it again 10 years later against the Tigers in Detroit. But that particular night against the Seattle Mariners, was it April 13th or 15th, 1986? It felt like it was 38 degrees. My dad and I almost went to that game. We didn't at the last second. We were an hour and a half away at the time. But we didn't because he thought it was going to be too cold. There were literally 12 or 13,000 people in the stands. That was it for that game. And Roger was just on target, had 12 strikeouts through 5. And even though Gorman Thomas hit a home run, they were actually down 1-0 in that game before Dwight Evans hit a 3-run homer, I believe, in the 8th inning to put the Red Sox up 3-1 in the winning. But getting back to Don Baylor, I think it was Spike Owen at the plate before they traded for him during that season. Pop up to Don Baylor. This is when Roger had about, I don't know, probably 14 or 15 strikeouts at the time. Pop up to Don Baylor on, I think it was a 2-2 count, if I'm not mistaken. And he dropped it. It popped up to Don Baylor, foul territory, in the right in the coach's box in first base. And he just goofed it, hit the thing with his glove. One pitch later, strike 3. On Spike or whoever it was at the plate, and that helped. If that play doesn't happen, Roger doesn't set the record that night. So Don Baylor also had a kangaroo court, which he charged himself, I think, $100 or $500. If you fucked up in the game, if you made an error, or you did something stupid, you didn't turn a double play properly, whatever it was, you'd have to go in the cookie jar, the kangaroo court cookie jar. He was great at that stuff. He really was. All right, more. Here's Buck Showalter and Brian Kenny talking about the Red Sox situation.
28-year-old, $300 million, great bat playing third base. And suddenly here's a new guy who's been a third baseman. How do you think this plays out and how have they handled this?
Well, maybe I'm getting too deep here. I've been accused of trying to be. But, if nothing else, it's going to push Devers. There's somebody there now that can play the position better than you. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what are you going to do?
Good point.
I think in a lot of ways, if nothing else, it's going to push him to be focused in the spring and during the season that your defense, we have somebody here that can play third base. Mm. I don't think they've had that before. He didn't have any, but with that contract, he may say, what competition? You're going to have to play me some. The problem is...
Right. And his bat, but to be fair, and his bat. Bat is the biggest bat on the club, and that, right.
Basically comes down, I don't want to be a DH, okay? And
why would they want him to be a DH?
Exactly. And I think Bregman's probably going to end up at second base before it's over. Mm. And he can also play a little shortstop. Keep that in mind with Trevor Story, some of the injury issues he's had in the past, he can go over. I remember the first time I saw him at LSU playing shortstop, I went, wow, this guy's a baseball player.
It's a few years ago. Would you be, you're in spot duty.
I think they've mentioned it. Spot duty, he can go over there and play for a while. But wouldn't you like to have everybody be able to say, hey, whatever's best for our team, I'm willing to do. Just tell me where to play. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Bregman's handled this beautifully so far. It's been a little rough go there, a little rougher than it had to be. Meantime.
Yeah, great stuff by Buck Showalter, Brian Kenny. Like them votes very much. That's from SiriusXM MLB Radio as well. All right, Angel, let's take another quick break here. Before we do, I want to tell you about Phil Castanetti Sports World in Saugus, Massachusetts. It's New England's place to buy or sell the finest in sports memorabilia. For over 35 years, Sports World has offered the finest in sports collectibles. Get on down there to Phil Castanetti Sports World, 184 Broadway in Saugus. Call 781-233-7222 for more information. That's 781-233-7222 for more information. Sports World in Saugus, be there. Bill Sparrow's coming up from the Boston Herald and Bookies.com at the bottom of the hour. Mick Colaggio talking some hockey and Four Nations coming up at 9:05 a.m. And you guys, when we come back, we'll focus more. I'm going to get to college football. Big meeting going on today in New Orleans. Everything's happening in New Orleans lately, except for jazz people performing at the Super Bowl. But everybody else is going on. You got Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, amongst others, are going to be in New Orleans to talk about, among other things, the college football playoff expansion scenario. We'll get into that and a whole lot more, all part of the Pete Sheppard Show here on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey, everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them, sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And, with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have anybody to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're gonna go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You gotta dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. I know you won't, because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. Now go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
You want the best in sports and entertainment?
You got it. Now, back to the Pete Sheppard Show.
I think the NBA need to prioritize, for every one of these guys, who gets them ready for games during the season? Okay, I know that person's supposed to be on All-Star. I'm going to pay them $5,000 extra, $10,000 extra to be at All-Star weekend and to make sure every single guy has their prep. With that being said, no other requirements. If you do some personal some personal things that you want to do, then do that.
Oh, Draymond Green. Still yapping, as Draymond does. That's on the Draymond Green Show with Baron Davis talking about the NBA All-Star Game and what the league needs to do. I just find it hard to believe that $5,000 or $10,000 extra is going to motivate some people to try to participate in the All-Star. I don't know. Here's more from Draymond, and welcome back to hour number 2 of the Pete Sheppard Show here on the Coastal Sports Network.
Only thing you are here at All-Star Weekend to do is to be ready to compete in this game. Get your body ready to play at a high level. By the time you get to the game Sunday night, you've done so much. You're so tired. You've had so many obligations that it's like, oh, now we got the game? Like, man, get me out of here.
It used to be a thing you look forward to the game. But now you look at, the game is so global, the responsibility on these dudes, that they kind of just want to not be seen and chill. All-Star Weekend was like, it used to be rest, but you treated it like it was another game. This is the game I'm playing with all the juggernauts. Let me show who I am. And I don't think people we're not setting our guys up for that.
All right. Look, I think back in the day it was real simple when it was good in the late 70s, early 80s, 90s, early 2000s. You had the slam dunk contest Friday night or Saturday. You had the three-point shooting contest, and then you had the game on Sunday. And then they started with the rookie game, which is fine on a Friday. I don't mind that, I don't mind. After that, I don't care. And now you got people that don't want to participate in it. The faces of the league don't want to participate in any of this stuff anymore, and they don't seem highly motivated to be in it. And, they've made their own bet here. The NBA has made their own bet. Now, the question is, can they fix it? Can they fix it? A couple of other NBA notes. Going to get to Stephen A. Smith in a second. This is a funny cut. Joel Embiid, Angel, would rather retire than play for this team.
You gonna come to Indy? Come on.
I might want to come to Indy.
Come on, let's make it work.
Never in my life. I'd rather retire.
Yeah, that's not fair, bro. Next time y'all come to Indy, come on, let's go to dinner. So come to my crib.
No, I'm good, man.
You gotta get out the hotel. You can't be no.
I come to your crib.
Come to my crib.
I come to the game.
Yeah, come on.
It's Joel Embiid talking to Tyrese Halliburton about playing for Indiana on Netflix. So obviously that's not going to happen. But you really need to say that? I mean, what are those boos going to be like when Philadelphia plays in Indiana again? Come on. What do you mean? You wish you were on that team. You'd be better off. Although, I shouldn't say that because he doesn't play. He doesn't play enough.
Well, he doesn't play, but to add to it, he would be better off because Josh Harris isn't doing crap with the Sixers. Again, he's more worried about the Commanders than he is about the Sixers, so he would be better off on the bench.
Let me see what else. Okay, I want to go to Stephen A. talking about. I said one of the big topics today nationally, for whatever reason, because so many of them besides PK Subban can't talk about the hockey. They got to sit there and make up a topic, which was, can the face of the NBA survive without an American player if it's an international player, which I say I don't think most of this country cares. I really don't, unless you're extremists like one way or the other. I mean, do you care about what it is in baseball or football? And obviously it's going to be more American than football, but baseball and hockey, I mean, do you care? There's been a lot. Right now, Shohei Ohtani is the face of Major League Baseball by far, or at least one of the top two.
Get that.
It's. So let's scroll down. I want to get to.
Hang on. You got some NFL breaking news here.
Oh, hang on. Let me play it before you get to it. Hang on. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Breaking news. Angel Martinez, what is going on here? Let me see. I just got some notifications as well. Go ahead.
The NFL will play another regular season game in Brazil in 2025. The Chargers will be the designated team in Sao Paulo Corinthians Arena. Another game for Brazil. Looks like it was such a success the first time around. It'll be a second go around for Brazil. So listen.
Your Eagles beat the Packers on opening night.
They sure did. We had
Friday. Yeah, on a Friday. Now, the big question is who they play against, and we'll see who they're going to play against.
Yeah.
So Chargers, the home team in Brazil. Yeah. Okay.
We're going to make it a Wednesday night match till this time, just to screw everything up.
People that had to cover that game do not want to go back to Brazil. It has nothing to do with the people that you have. It's just the time, the amount of the flights and delays and the stuff that happened. I heard some people that covered that game. I think Sao Paulo was one. It was like a 17-hour day.
Yeah.
But whatever. All right, if we could scroll down to Stephen A. about he chimed in yesterday about the NBA, can it survive with an international figure being the face of the league? I don't think it's such a big deal, but he does.
Well, makes a lot of things a big deal.
Yeah.
Personal opinion is I don't believe an international player can be the face of the NBA. I know they're global iconic figures. Their popularity extends globally, but the NBA is an American-born sport. And it needs to resonate in America. And if it doesn't resonate in America, then it's not going to matter to America how you resonate beyond. And so that's just my mentality, UD. That's how I think about it. Not to say they can't be popular or what have you, but I just think about it that way. Shannon, as to your point that you made yesterday, UD wasn't here when you made it. I understand your point, and you're absolutely right. You can't want something more for somebody else than they want for themselves. And I totally get that. But that doesn't mean I'm not entitled to my wish list. And my wish is that Anthony Edwards changes his mind. And the reason why is because, my favorite players are him and Steph Curry. And where I fell in love with Anthony Edwards wasn't with the dunks or whatever. It was when the playoffs showed up last year and that brother was giving it to the Phoenix Suns. That to me was the nail in the coffin, UD, because he was talking major smack to his idol, Kevin Durant. And he was going after, and remember, I'm somebody that feels very, very highly about Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker's an absolute stud. I watched that brother get on the court against them brothers and just shrink them. Let them know there was levels to it, and I don't know who told y'all were on it, but y'all ain't, and went at them.
Well, there's so many people that he left out. He never wants to, he didn't mention Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. Even Brunson. There's a lot of people. By the way, here's Anthony Edwards. This is also from Court of Gold on Netflix.
I didn't think I saw it do that. What do you think about this young guy? He can hoop a little bit, huh? Just a little bit, huh?
With President Barack Obama.
He's the truth. He said the truth.
Former president.
Yeah.
He boy know.
I guess.
He cold though. I gotta give him credit. He give up 50 every time we play him.
I mean,
like I ain't 7 foot.
And y'all got 2 7-footers and he's still
Hold on.
Huh?
Don't talk. We ain't gonna do all that.
No, I'm just saying.
3 7-footers.
He got 3. That's right. Because he got 9
give him credit. I told you that. I said
he did.
I gave him credit.
I remember that. Okay. LeBron. Listen, Are y'all talking to this young man? Because he just keeps on. Right now, he just said he's the truth and all that, and
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
that's
truth.
what
That's
he
what
said.
You asked him. You tell him the whole context of the situation, though. You asked him what he think about this young man, and he said, "I'm okay." I said, "I'm the truth." He's tripping. That's what happened. Nothing wrong with that.
Say,
Nothing wrong with that.
we gotta have that.
Yeah, that man.
All right. Whatever. I don't care who the face of the league is. I don't think most people in this country do. I really don't. You know, usually the face of the league is the best player. In baseball, it's Shohei Ohtani right now. There's nobody more popular in baseball than him.
Nope.
Mike Trout, nobody would recognize if he walked down the street. You know, you want us to put Aaron Judge up there? Yeah, as well, face of the league. All right, but can you deny right now the most popular player in Major League Baseball is not Shohei Ohtani? Now, Stephen A., he needs to touch his opinion, obviously, and all that. What he just said, you know, apply the same logic, Stephen A., to all the other sports. You know, I wonder if he has that mentality for baseball, hockey, and football. Now, football is more obvious because, you know, there's not, besides the kickers and the rugby people coming out of Australia and, you know, some soccer players that are kickers. Other than that, it's you know, 99% Americans. So that's not really fair to say that. But even if it wasn't, I mean, who cares? I mean, if Tom Brady was, you know, not white or whatever, or was from another country, would that matter? The face of the league for a time being. Peyton Manning, the same thing. If Peyton Manning was Peyton Martinez and from Puerto Rico, would we think any less of him to be the face, quote unquote, face of the league, or one of them anyway? I mean, I just don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. You know, I know it's a topic that these guys on ESPN and some other places have to go to because it's this lazy time of year. They don't want to talk. And, you know, when Stephen A. starts talking about college football, it is the guy's probably watched 3 games in his life. You know, he loves to say Alabama. That's what he does after on Mondays. He loves to say Alabama, but doesn't even watch Alabama. And when he starts talking about all this stuff and relates it to the NBA, I call him out on a lot of other things if its mentality is the same for all the other sports. I don't know, but the NBA has definitely got. There's a problem. I mean, there's absolutely a problem, and they're lucky that people like me, because of the Celtics and how well they play overall as a team. You say that about Cleveland, OKC, and a couple others. Other than that, it sucks. If you're not one of the top 4 or 5 teams out there, you're not paying attention. You're not paying attention. People aren't watching. It's just different. And I'm lucky because I want to see every play. My Celtics are, you know, one of the best defending world champs and one of the best teams, and they're the only ones in Vegas at -110 at the halfway point. Not the halfway point, but the 30 games left. The real NBA season begins. They're the only one that's a minus to win the championship, which is the favorite. Everybody else is plus money. And I do think they will win it again, if as long as everybody stays, like everybody else, reasonably healthy. What did I want to play? I wanted to get, before Bill Sparrows comes on, I did want to get into the college football situation. The SEC and Big Ten mucky mucks, meaning Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, and Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, among others, going to be in New Orleans today. They're going to be discussing House versus NCAA settlement and future NCAA governance. It's also include important conversations about the college football playoff and what the 2 most powerful conferences want to look at moving forward. Heather Denich had a great column today. If you guys have ESPN Plus, I recommend it highly. That being said, before Bill comes on, I did want to play this cut, which I think is very interesting. Where is it? I went by it. I will find it. But it is Matt Schick from the Big Ten Network Sirius XM show. This is a Big Ten guy, what you are about to hear as far as the college football playoff goes. And I apologize for not having that right here. I thought it was. Here we go. Okay, here he is. Here's Matt Schick on the Big Ten Sirius XM network show.
You know, as much as I'd like to think that there's that long game of what does this mean 30 years from now for the health of the sport, I don't think anyone gives a crap. Like I really don't. I think this is, we got revenue sharing coming up. We've got 20 to 30 million per school that we're going to have to give to our student athletes. So let's make sure our bottom line is as high as it can be so that we can make as much money as possible, because we are having to spend more money on the student athletes and the times are changing, et cetera, et cetera. In the meantime, we're spending $3 million on a coordinator. We're giving contracts over buyouts for head coaches. Like, that money's not going away. And these contracts with these television agreements are so enormous that it's hard to fathom that these automatic bids need to happen, need to be in play for the Big Ten and the SEC. That might sound odd coming from one of the hosts of a Big Ten radio show, but you know, if conferences have a down year, you don't deserve anything. And just because we saw this in the SEC this past season, just because you're in the league doesn't mean you deserve the fruits of other people's labor.
Thank you.
The SEC had a down year, but just because you're in the SEC doesn't mean that you deserve 4 teams in. But because they have the power, and because they in the Big Ten have the power now, they can say, no, we are going to get 4 teams in, whether we deserve it, quote unquote, or not. And I think that is a dangerous spot to be in. But I also think there isn't a lot of care being shown to that.
Look, and basically it comes down to a phrase that I love and I hate at the same time, a sense of entitlement. And that goes through not just sports, but all walks, a sense of entitlement. And that's what SEC people like Feinbaum and others think, and to a degree, some Big Ten people as well. But as I keep saying, look, the field has shrunk. It used to be this. Now it's this because of NIL and because of the transfer portal. Okay, so it's a much more even playing field. So just because you're in this conference or that conference does not mean you're going to or should be guaranteed. I heard somebody say, like, oh, if somebody went 7-6 in the SEC yesterday, I forget who said it, they should be in because it's the SEC. No, they shouldn't. No, Feinbaum goes, I'm not really interested in the amount of losses for an SEC team, because he got into the discussion yesterday, the few minutes that I heard him. I'm like, what are you talking about? So some 4 or 5 loss SEC teams should get in? No, it doesn't work that way. Look, whether they want to believe it or not, there's a reason why March Madness works. And you can say people don't want it to expand or anything else. Look, we've seen teams that were like 1-15 and go on to win their, go on runs and win their conference. Okay, yes, and they get in. But the beauty of March Madness is it's not the 64 or quote unquote 68 best teams. That's not the reason why the tournament was put together. If it was, you just rank from AP to RPI ratings 1 to 68 and then have none of these conference tournaments. But it gives. Otherwise, you'd never have an NC State. You'd never have a Villanova. There's always a possibility. And even in college football, even with 16 teams and not 68, I think it makes it all that more competitive. And I don't care what anybody says. Look, I would have loved to have seen Miami and Alabama both in the tournament, the college football playoff last year. I think it would have been very fascinating to see what would have happened. I would have loved to have seen people try to stop Cam Ward. Now, they may have lost 50-49, but I still thought it would have been nice to see them in with a situation like that. When you have the Heisman Trophy finalist in and you can't make the college football playoff, that sucks. It really does. But we'll see what happens with this stuff. In less than a week, by the way, the College Football Playoffs Management Committee will meet in Dallas to begin a thorough review of the inaugural 12-team field. ADs in the Big Ten and SEC will have a chance, though, to express their preferences to their respective commissioners before the Big Ten's Tony Petitti and SEC's Greg Sankey meet their FBS peers. Who said this? But one college football playoff source told Heather Denich, quote, I would imagine that coming out of that Big Ten and SEC meeting, they will come to the table with proposed governances, proposed format. I think that's everybody's expectation, but I don't expect anything radical that hasn't already been discussed. And look, I think they're going to expand by next year to 16. It might even be 14. Like if you're going to do 14, do 16. Do it just do like what the FCS does. Just do it there. So every Division I school trying to figure out how many teams should be in the playoffs. It will be at least 12. How they should qualify. Should certain conferences be guaranteed spots, and if so, how many? And how they should be seeded. So that's all going to be coming up in the world of college football over the next couple of weeks. But joining me right now is the one and only from the Boston Herald and Bookies.com. It is Bill Speros for his weekly visit. I recommend highly that you read his column and his interview with Scotty Bowman, which I've only seen the first couple of paragraphs. I can't wait to read it. I have retweeted it, and we're going to talk about that as well with Bill Speros and the Four Nations, the NBA All-Star debacle. What was worse, NBA All-Star Weekend, Bill, or SNL's 50-year anniversary? Which sucked more? Go.
NBA. SNL was more of a disappointment. The NBA was just unwatchable.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good things about SNL. There were a lot of good things about it. But it was, in my opinion, a real disappointment given what I think it could have been. Whereas the NBA thing was doomed from the start, and it was atrocious.
I am so happy what PK Subban has said over the last couple of days. I don't know if you've heard it. He has been. Have you heard what he said on Get Up? Can I just play this for you? And
Sure.
it is absolutely Mona Lisa Vito, dead on balls, accurate. Here, can we pull that video up, Angels, so Bill can see it? Is that possible? The one that we played earlier in the show. And because this was outstanding yesterday, weighing in on how the NHL could inspire the NBA. This is really good stuff. And thanks, Bill, for coming on board. We'll get to we have a lot to talk about today, lots and lots and lots to talk about. It's under the Netflix thing, which we'll get into with Bill. Also, Netflix wants to take over CBS and Fox in the NFL, which I think Florio had that story first, but not surprised at that either. The other breaking news, the Chargers are going to play in Brazil. Okay, here it is, Bill. Here's what PK was on Get Up. Yes, this is fantastic.
Heard what Giannis says. He says, hey, I think what we should do is, let's say, the world take on the American players in the NBA. Kind of somewhat sort of what are you doing in the NHL? What do you think?
Well, listen, hockey's a different sport from the NBA. You can't compare the cultures because of the way the game is played. You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey. You can't. Like, the culture of our sport, you have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice. That's what fans are investing in. So for us, when we charge $1,500 for a ticket to come to fans know what they're getting. Cale Makar, the best defenseman in the world, wasn't in the lineup for this game. This was the most viewed game that we've had in years. And you see it, it's because it's not just based on the skill and talent. It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you. I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money. What, you're injured? Well, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference. In hockey, we play hurt. We play injured. That is the culture of the sport. It's always been that way. So you want to talk about the business, the CBA, fans get all of that. But what do fans resonate with? They resonate with what's real. You got to fight sometimes for your country. You got to compete. You got to go out there and leave it on the ice because those people are paying the price of admission. So fans know whether our stars are on the ice or not, they're getting their money's worth. The NBA has that issue that they got to work on. You got to create a better culture for your players. It starts with the leaders. This issue, there was no issue when Jordan was around. There was no issue when Kobe was around. There's no issue when Sidney Crosby's around. There's no issue when Wayne Gretzky was around because those are true leaders. They lead by example. Sidney Crosby, Hockey Canada, those players, both Canada and U.S., it was the players that did that for the four nations. That's not the league. The league set it up, but the players went out there and decided and said, you know what, boys? We're all in. When is the NBA going to do that? Because, I haven't sat down and watched the NBA consistently since Kobe. Since Kobe has died, I have not sat down and watched the NBA consistently. I love basketball. Love the players. I think LeBron's great. I think KD's great. Steph Curry, love watching them. But you got to be on the court. You got to be there, and when you're there, you got to go all in. The fans got to feel that they're getting their money's worth. And right now, there's a big difference between what the NHL's doing with those events and what the NBA is doing. Four Nations works because the players are all in.
All right, and the only thing I will one thing I will say, and Bill knows this too, and I brought this up earlier, Bill. There was a time in the I think mid to late 90s, early 2000s, where the NHL All-Star Game also became a farce. We're talking 19-9. So, I mean, then they tweaked it. They went to the 3-on-3 format and all that stuff. But I was telling Angel, and, I remember when it was the Prince of Wales Conference versus the Campbell Conference. I remember Mike Lee winning MVP for the Blues before he went to Hartford as a goalie in the All-Star Game. I think the Campbell Conference won 5-3. And I mean, that was, you think about that now, but there was a time where the NHL All-Star Game was as big a farce as the NBA All-Star Game was. For a few years anyway, those 18-10 scores and all that, nobody played defense. They didn't even need goalies. But everything else PK Subban just said there is dead on balls accurate. And we'll see, because I think it's a problem. The NBA, they tripled their contract, right? I mean, tripled it television-wise, but thank God the Celtics are where they are, because if they weren't where they are, I wouldn't be watching the NBA.
Well, I wouldn't either. But to his point, like I think what he said, that what are they playing for?
Yeah.
We saw that the other night, and I know there's a lot of political, and I didn't want to get into politics too much in my column since I had the opportunity to talk to Scott Bowman.
Yep.
But obviously there's a political undertone to this. Trump says what he says, he's Trump. But that just to me, was sort of, it's like when you put carrot, you throw a little extra lighter fluid, it just kind of flashes up.
Yeah.
But these guys were playing for their country. So obviously they're going to be passionate about it. Now, and you throw in the booing of the national anthem, I'm sure that pissed them off. Like I said in my column today, only Americans can boo the national anthem. They can't do that to our pledges. Only we can do that.
I hate booing of any national anthems.
I
think
agree.
it's ridiculous.
I agree.
I love the Bruins fans or the hockey fans singing along with it with the other night with Angeli doing a great job.
Yeah, but the players were playing for something. They were playing for their country, obviously. I even back in the day when it was East versus West in the NBA All-Star Game, that was kind of a pride thing for these guys.
It was.
Of
course it was. How many times did we watch in the 80s at the end? It would be
exactly.
Pat Riley, KC, Lakers and Celtics players on the floor, probably Dr. J. That's what it came down, and it meant something.
Well, when they changed that, when they went away from East versus West, very simple. These are sort of primal, like basic human things, like my tribe versus your tribe. So it's very easy for hockey players to get excited when it's my country versus your country, or even basketball players, if it's East versus West, East Coast versus West Coast, right? Rappers used to shoot each other over that stuff. So ball players can get excited about that. But whatever the hell it is now in the NBA, and I don't even know what it is, it's a complete joke. I think the idea of having the Americans play an international team for 3 games over the course of 2 weeks, I think that would really work. Because we've seen how the Americans get up for the Olympics. We saw it with Kobe, we saw it with LeBron, and we saw it with Steph Curry this year. These guys they went to another level. You look at the last 3 gold medal games that the Americans won. It was Kobe, and then it was LeBron twice, and then it was Steph Curry. I mean, these guys just take over because they know what's on the line. And they have now, with Kobe being gone, the NBA players, they have to live up to that legacy because they're never going to, it's like something you can chase, but you can never catch, right? It's like trying to be the next Bobby Orr or trying to be the next Gretzky. You'll never do that, but you can always chase it, right? So if you're an American basketball player in the Olympics, you got to win the gold medal because Kobe won the gold medal and Magic and Michael and Larry were on the dream. You can't F that up. And these hockey players feel the same thing, Obviously, the Canadians have a ton of baggage coming in where, Crosby hadn't lost until the other night. And, of course, every American international hockey player has Miracle on Ice in his ear every time he goes on the ice. So these guys are motivated. And the issue with the NBA is there's no motivation. So they've got to figure something out. I think the U.S. versus the world would be kind of badass. And in here with the Four Nations, and Scotty talked a lot about this when I spoke with him.
Yeah, I want to get into that with you in a second.
This is the precursor to the Olympics. Whatever happens tomorrow night, if the Americans win, it'll be great. If the Canadians win, good for them. But this is like the preliminaries. This is whatever happens Thursday, it is going to amp up the hype for the Olympics because somebody's going to be looking for payback, right? Somebody's going to be looking for, whether the Americans win, the Canadians can say, well, we still got the goal. Or the Americans win, the Canadians will say, well, we'll get you next time. We'll get you. That's less than a year away.
Yeah,
I wish from today the Olympics start, if you can believe it.
I know, and I just wish when ESPN was doing all this and having PK on, and what are they showing in the background of the three fights that happened? I mean, I can't stand when ESPN does that, and they should know better. Instead of showing some of the great, they focus on a couple of fights. It's some of the hosts that were trying to find questions, couldn't even pronounce some of these guys' names and everything else. It's fucking embarrassing.
That's what it
fucking
is.
Embarrassing. And thank God for PK Subban. But I wanted to get more on that in a second. But I want to get you tracked down Scotty Bowman.
He's right up the street from you at Siesta Key.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, that's a little bit more.
This time of year.
Yeah, this time of year. Yeah. So great. So tell us how the interview went. And I've already retweeted your article, so check it out.
Thank you.
On the Boston Herald. But what was that like? Hockey.
Well, mutual friend, a hockey guy, mutual hockey guy friend. I've known him forever. I was talking to him about this game, and he said, well, you should talk to Scotty. I'm really close to him. And in about 30 minutes, we went from texting. I went from texting my friend to speaking with Scotty on the phone. It took all of 30 minutes to set up. And we spoke for almost an hour on Monday night during the Sweden game. And I called him after the first period, and I said, well, I don't want to take too much of your time because this is a nothing game. We can, So we were both watching the game, obviously, as we were talking.
Sure.
And I asked him, and he knew why I was calling, and I wanted his perspective on how American hockey got to where it is and whether or not, he thinks it's better than the Canadians or as good. He wasn't really going to go there because he actually has dual citizenship, but he really offered a terrific perspective on how we got here. And it's basically what you've had over the last 30, 40 years, maybe even since Gretzky went to LA, is you've had American hockey expand geographically into all 50 states. And so because of that, now you're drawing on a potential pool of 350 million people. And he brought up Austin Matthews as the perfect example. He's from Phoenix. I did not know that.
Yeah.
He's from Arizona. He's perhaps the best American player. I mean, you could make an argument.
Yes.
And I know he plays in Toronto, but he's from Arizona.
Yeah.
And because of that, because of the fact that now, as you know, where you are at, and he mentioned Fort Myers, he said there's a, at the, whatever it's called, in the Hertz Center, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
They have like a big youth hockey thing there.
Huge hockey. The Everblades are huge.
Hockey tournaments. And he talked about the proliferation of ice rinks all over the place in Texas and California and Arizona and Florida. So basically what you're getting now in American hockey is you're getting really good elite athletes that would have otherwise played another sport are now choosing to play hockey. And even if they're not in Minnesota or Massachusetts, he kept going back to those two.
Sure.
Even though you're not in Lynn or Swampscott or Hibbing or Duluth, or
What a
Arlington.
point.
I got
Yeah.
obviously Arlington Ground Zero.
Yes.
You can play hockey if you're in Maitland, Florida, or if you're in Frisco,
They're
Texas.
having the Winter Classic at both stadiums at Ray J and in Miami.
Well, and to the point, I didn't even point this out in my column, but the Stanley Cup trophy is in freaking Sunrise.
You won't find much better fan bases. And of course, I'm biased for the Bruins, but I mean, the passion for the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning is as good as anybody's. That is a fact. That is a fact.
So to his point,
I'm not saying it's better or worse. No. I'm saying the passion for those two franchises here in Florida is absolutely, and what the Florida Everblades have done, winning back-to-back-to-back ECHL, and they're the talk of the town around here a lot of times, and they're having another outstanding year. Brad Ralph is just an unbelievable coach for the Everblades. But I mean, hockey is huge in Florida.
Well, that was his, that was sort of his overall point. And and again, he's 90 years old. He's been coaching for almost 70 years. He has 14 Stanley Cup rings. No one's come close. That's like Belichick and Brady combined almost, right?
Crazy.
So to me, I don't know of any. It's like if you had Belichick for an hour just talking like X's and O's, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt.
That's great.
I mean, of course, Scotty's a great guy. He's tack sharp. I mean, this guy is 91, and he explained to me how he has this app where he's able to check the feeds of basically every arena in North America. So whenever one of his grandkids is playing, and he's got 8 of them who are playing hockey,
I didn't know that.
He sits and streams the games for that. He was
wow.
telling me his granddaughter in Minnesota had 4 games on Saturday, and he watched all 4 of them.
Oh, God, that's so hard, though. How old is she? 12?
He said the kids were from 7 to 22. He's got 8 grandkids.
That's the other problem, though. 4 games in a day is, unless they're 10-minute periods or something like that, and that's it. But if they're,
obviously,
10-minute games, not 10-minute periods. I mean, that is a lot to ask, and that is the other problem. Besides it being a very expensive sport, obviously.
Yes.
And
he did mention that. It's funny.
Yeah.
He told me he's got his daughter lives in Swampscott, and she's got 2 boys. And he was telling me that, and one's a goalie. He was telling me that his grandkids, his daughter, when her sons outgrew their equipment, they would send it to their cousins.
Yeah.
So that the younger kids could use the same equipment. So the family of Scotty Bowman is recycling hockey equipment because it's so expensive. Skates,
you know how much it costs for a stick? A stick is like $200.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's unbelievable. And the fact that, and I talked with Mick Colagio about this too, is coming up next hour. The problem is in Rhode Island, like Mount St. Charles, who used to be the #1 team in the country, won all those state championships before my Hendrick and Hawks beat them. But I mean, high school hockey is still big around the country, but a lot of kids are leaving 14, 15 years old, going to play in either massive prep schools or going to play in these junior leagues. And the high school game has kind of gone down a hill a little bit, but the college game has never been better. I mean, more of an international game. Hockey East is unbelievable.
Yeah, he talked a lot about. Yeah, we talked a lot about that too. That was his other point.
Yep.
Was that the American colleges are now a legitimate feeder system.
Yes.
And he was explaining to me that was a rule change in Canada now that allows Canadian juniors who played at 16 and 17 to go to college in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So he was explaining how the colleges are going to be an even better feeder system.
No question about it. Bill Sparrows from the Boston Herald and bookies.com joining me. The big question this morning on, believe it or not, on ESPN, some others, before I get on, I tune in and I scratch my head.
You hate watch ESPN, Pete. Admit it.
No, I have it on the background while I'm doing Wordle, and
that's from the failing New York Times. Come on,
I also have the app, which is great. It has no ads, and it expands your vocabulary, makes you think a little bit, which is fine. But their big story this morning question is, and can the NBA survive if the face of the league is not an American? And my initial response is, I don't give a shit. Does that apply to all the other sports? And the first thing I said to myself, isn't Shohei Ohtani the biggest name in Major League Baseball right now out of Japan? Does that same kind of logic apply to every other sport? That if it's not, do you really care? Does it matter to you? Of course, Kyrie Irving's now the face of Australia. But but does it really matter who the face of the NBA is? Is that going to make you respect the league, watch the league more, or not? Or I don't know. Back in the day, I didn't care the Jerry West logo was on or Kobe Bryant's logo is the logo. I don't care about that stuff. So do you care if the face of the NBA, quote unquote, is not an American player?
Well, Pete, we just went through 30 years of Pedro Martinez and David Ortiz.
I brought that up. Absolutely.
So, no, I don't think anybody cares. I think they want great players. And if the best NBA player happens to be French or, Serbian or whatever, I don't think that's fine. I think what every league needs is a great team or a dynasty and a great player or two great players that are rivals. That's what every league needs. Baseball doesn't have that. The NFL does. The NHL is kind of a different animal. We've sort of had a different cup champion every year. But I think what we're seeing now and the Olympics is going to help the NHL immensely down the road. But the NBA, I think it would be awesome for the NBA if the Celtics won again this year, because then you could start talking about, okay, we have a great team. The NFL, I think we were getting a little bit Mahomes overload, but we know as Patriots fans, we know how that felt. Screw the world. It was us against the world. I mean, Kansas City felt the same way. So what every sport needs is a face. It needs a great player or great players, Bird Magic, to be rivals, right? Remember golf. Golf's always had great rivalries.
Yes.
Tennis has always had great rivalries. I think in the NBA, with LeBron kind of aging out, that the throne is up for grabs right now. And so, we're in kind of this period of who's the best player in the NBA. You get 5 different answers. So I think what the NBA needs more so than an American is somebody to be the face of the league. Because I
think they would love it to be Jaylen Brown, but that's not his. They want this bombastic type people, and that's not him. I mean, he does a lot. So does Jason Tatum, and a lot of other guys. But some guys just I think Anthony Edwards even said it the other day. There are players that are like, I don't want to be the face of the league.
Not everybody wants to be a leader, right? Not everybody wants to be, like you said, the star of the show, which is fine. I mean, I don't care if Tatum and Brown are not, as long as they show up in the playoffs and do what they did last year, and even to a lesser extent the year before when they came back against Miami. If they can do that in the playoffs, I don't really care.
Yeah,
I don't agree with a lot of Jaylen Brown's certainly socio or political views, but I admire what he's doing, and he seems like a really committed guy.
Yep.
And I don't see, to me, I don't have a problem with what Jaylen Brown does, or if Jason Tatum just wants to be kind of focused on himself. I don't have a problem with any of that. I
don't either.
I just want him to win.
That's me. Same thing. Bill says, Pete, I don't know if you know this, Mountain no longer competes in hockey. Yeah, no, I said that, Bill. I appreciate it. But yeah, I did. I know that's what I said. It's a shame that Mountain, after winning all those championships, even though a lot of them were against my team, my school, until my buddy Jim Kramer, who was in the class of '85, one of the great classes of all time, finally dethroned them back in the day. But yeah, I know that Mount doesn't play hockey anymore. It's a shame when arguably number one team in the country for a long, long time. But that aside, speaking of the NBA, how about? I never thought I'd ask you this about the WNBA. You had a couple of interesting columns. Now, Donnie, you said the ownership of the Connecticut Sun is on the record opposing WNBA expansion in Boston. Now, isn't Donnie Wahlberg part of that, or wants to be part of it?
Well, what happened was there was a story yesterday in the Globe that Donnie Wahlberg and some other guy whose name I forgot want to make a WNBA expansion bid. The WNBA is expanding. It's expanding to the West Coast in the next couple of years. I think 26th, it's going to add Vancouver, San Francisco. I don't have it off the top of my head. And they're also moving to Cleveland in 2028. So if Boston were to get a team, it wouldn't be until probably 2030.
Michael Carter Williams is who you're thinking of.
Yeah, that's right. My apologies, Mr.
No,
Carter Williams. But I interviewed the owner of not the owner, but the managing partner of the Sun, because they're owned by the Mohegan tribe, as you know. And last year at the global gaming conference in Vegas, and it was sort of newsworthy when he came out. I mean, this was on the record, and this wasn't like a gotcha thing. He brought this up. he told me flat out that the Connecticut Sun, they don't want a team in Boston for obvious reasons, and they feel like they sort of own New England. I don't know what the WNBA. I don't know if the WNBA has a territorial thing. I don't know how that works, but I do know that if it's up to the tribe in Connecticut, there won't be a WNBA team in Boston because they believe that New England is their territory and they've sort of been around for a while. So I think if and when this were to come to fruition, and again, I don't know the WNBA expansion process. I do know what's coming because I've read about it, and actually Ray and I talked about it. But I do know that the owners of the Sun, the Mohegan tribe, are on the record, at least according to me, because I was there and I reported it. It was actually picked up by the Globe. They're opposed to a WNBA team in Boston. They do want to play in Boston. They don't want to move to Boston, obviously, because they own the casino. And as we've seen with the Seminole tribe here in Florida, the tribes are they don't really like to think out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, the no-brainer would be for the Sun to move to Boston, right? That would be a no-brainer.
Do you think that would play well in the city? You think they'd attract fans, or to be, you don't want to have a WNBA team or any team in the Garden with 2,000 people?
Well, I don't know, but my point is, my point is, having worked with the Seminole tribe a lot, and I've talked to a lot of tribal people through gaming, and they're not big into thinking out of the box. They're big into like, we like what we got, and we don't want to change it. So the Sun is not going to move. They're not going to leave the arena and the casino that they own. And they're going to oppose, or at least publicly oppose, to get something in return, a WNBA team in Boston. And I think we don't have to be geniuses to figure out that if there is a WNBA team in Boston someday, it doesn't bode well for the Connecticut Sun.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, at a point in time, if and when this were to come to fruition, some friction there between the owners of the Sun and the league.
But couldn't we build that up into something, New England, like the Bruins and the Whalers back in the day? Okay, it wasn't Bruins Canadians, but still, it was a pretty heated rivalry. And if you couldn't get tickets to the Garden, you could always go to the mall and watch.
It was.
But I mean, I think a Boston, Hartford, WNBA thing, I think it could work, provided you get fans at the Garden.
Maybe you're right, but the presumption, at least the quote that Donnie Wahlberg gave the Globe, was that he believes that this WNBA team would be playing in the Garden. I mean, he said he envisions that this is WNBA team in the Garden.
No question. I couldn't imagine it being anyone.
I don't know if the WNBA market is big enough, in Boston.
That's my point.
I think, unfortunately, the league is going to expand. I mean, before you get to Boston, they're going to add at least 3 more teams, which is going to lessen the talent pool.
Mm-hmm. So
by the time Boston were to get a team, and probably in 5 years, and I'm not, you're going to obviously have at least temporarily, a lessening of the talent because you're spreading it thinner and thinner. So it'll be interesting. Look, I saw that story. I actually, again, this was last night. There was kind of a lot going on for me. So I really haven't had time to dig into it. Obviously, I got to reach out to the Connecticut Sun people and see what they would say, and, figure out what the WNBA rules are on this. But at least from what I've reported and what I've been told, there's going to be some friction from from the tribe in Connecticut opposing a WNBA team in Boston.
But don't they, whoever I don't even know who the hell the goddamn commissioner is, the WNBA, can't the commissioner say, too bad, this is what we're doing? Look, people are going to pay $200 million or whatever it is, an entry fee. Hard to pass up that kind of money.
Obviously,
can't the commissioner's opinion?
I would assume, unless the one thing I don't know is if there's some sort of territorial hold. In other words, I don't know if when the Connecticut Sun was chartered, they were like given exclusivity to New England or something like that. I don't. I mean, WNBA was founded almost 30 years ago. God only knows what's in those papers. So So obviously, for the league, it's better to have a team in Boston. Obviously, I think at the end of the day, you're probably going to have to pay the Sun, like a bonus, like a double expansion fee or something. But I do know that they are opposed to this, and they will oppose it until or unless they get something of substance in return.
I mean,
don't
Boston's
think that would
passionate
be-
sports town. We know. I mean, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, they'd be an attraction. I think you get, but initially, I don't know. I know if they ever did, I'm sure nobody wants to see what I had to go through, like with Steve Casper and ML Carr years of the Bruins and the Celtics, and have 5,000 people at the Garden. You don't want to see that. And obviously, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark would be attractions. You probably get sellouts for those two teams if the expansion did happen and everything else. I'd like to see the UConn women's basketball team come and play. To be honest with you, in Boston, I'm sure Gino would hate that, but I mean that would be a draw. I'm telling you right now, if UConn women came a couple times a year to play at the Garden, I think they'd sell out. I really believe that. Now, obviously, people in Hartford and stores would not be too thrilled about that. But if the money is right and is there, I think it would be a cool thing. I'm not sure how a WNBA team would play in Boston if everything went smoothly and they did end up getting it.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, and again, you're talking something that's not going to happen for at least 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So whatever the situation is now, I'm sure it'll be different in 4 years.
Absolutely. Before we let you go, this is great stuff. What is happening? What is happening on the gambling front? Anything new? I know you've got a couple of stories out there, but anything noteworthy?
Well, we're in the legislative season right now. I mean, Missouri is getting ready to launch this summer. So they'll be up and running by the fall. They legalized in January. There was an interesting thing last night out of Texas that I have to run down, where there was some issue about an $83 million lottery ticket being sold by Jack Pocket. And it turns out that the Jack Pocket operation was working out of the back room of a lottery retailer. So the lieutenant governor, who's in charge of basically everything in Texas because he runs the Senate, posted a video yesterday about, what the hell is going on. And now all of a sudden he's talking about banning, online lottery courier services in Texas when, folks are hoping for sports betting. And then he mentioned during this video that this really stinks and that DraftKings own Jack Pocket. And I heard that, my eyes blew out of my head. So just on the surface, that doesn't bode well. And he listed 40 bills that he wants to see passed this year in the state Senate, and none of them had the word sports betting or gambling in them. So I think it's going to be people got to understand with Texas, the lieutenant governor, he runs that ship because you don't get anything through the Senate unless he lets it come to the floor. And now that you have an issue with the state lottery, I think that's just going to muddy the waters more on sports betting. And in Minnesota, they had a bill that didn't even get out of committee in the Senate. And the Minnesota House is locked in a tie that's not going to be broken until March. So that doesn't bode well there.
So ridiculous. What are these people thinking? Don't they understand the revenue and the tax money that comes in through this? What?
Pete, it's all politics is local. Remember,
but
Tim O'Neill told us that. He said, Billy, all politics is local. So it's all local. Every single one of these states that's trying to get sports betting where it doesn't work, it fails not because of the merits or the demerits of gambling and sports betting, but because of other unrelated issues that poison the well.
Gotcha. Bill, great stuff as always. Make sure you check out Bill Sparrows, the Boston Herald, and that article on Scotty Bowman, and also all his stuff on bookies.com. You're the senior betting analyst. Great stuff as always. We didn't even get into the Red Sox, which is I was out with Lou Maloney last night.
We got 6 months to do that.
We got drama, baby. We got drama. Although Alex says nothing to see here. But Bill, thanks so much.
Right.
And
what did Billy Martin say about Alex Cora and John Henry? One's a born liar and the other's convicted. I think he was talking about Alex Cora and John Henry, and not Billy Martin. And
not Manager Cassis. Out there. Manager Cassis is out there too. As I said,
this is good.
Worry about playing first base. You got enough problems over there. Worry about that.
Pete, this is exciting.
It is.
Functional Red Sox are interesting. They're interesting. We're going to watch them implode. They are going to implode like the supernova come September. They'll be
I'm
like
not ready to
2
go there
games
yet.
up in the division, and it's just all going to disintegrate.
I'm the first time in a while. I'm pretty excited about this team. I'm not going crazy over the top, but they're going to make me get the baseball package again. So anyway, Bill, thanks so
Mission
much.
accomplished.
Yes, thanks so much. And then we'll do this again next week. A week from today, I will be at JetBlue because I'm going to the game in a luxury box. Because I'm a gentleman, I can't sit in the stands. Anyway, love you, Bill. Take care. All the best. Have a great week. There you go. There's Bill Sparrows joining us here from the Boston Herald, a great columnist and senior betting analyst at bookies.com as we wait for Mick Colagio to join us at any second here on the Pete Sheppard Show on the Coastal Sports Network. Thanks again, everybody, for checking us out at PShep326 on X and Twitter, on all the Facebook pages, on SR1029thegame.com, our awesome app, CSN Florida, Rumble, Kick, LinkedIn, YouTube, and call or text the show 727-858-6650. And Angel Martinez is going to be staying on board because you had your meetings pushed back a little bit today. So I'm glad about that. Mick should be popping on at any. So that's good stuff from Bill Sparrows, as always. One of my favorite people to talk to every week. He's great.
I like when he gets fired up though, because it's it's always insightful information, but it's better when he gets fired up. And that gambling thing, the bills are trying to be passed. Like, come on, man, really?
Any of you numbnut politicians, and I don't care if you're an R, a D, an I, or an F. I don't care. F means fuck off. But I mean, I don't care what state you're in. If you are that naive and stupid to not have gambling in your state, when you see the amount of revenue that it is generating and where the tax money hopefully goes to the right places, in this day and age, you're going to be an idiot. That's the only way to describe it, an idiot, or you're one of those moral police people. We don't want gambling. Those are the same people that go out and get shit-faced every night, too, in their local bars with their martinis, pickling their martini and olive with their pinky finger. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, which I've done. All right, I got to do the proper intro here.
They did say precautionary is the reason why they didn't bring him back. So how does this affect this big matchup Thursday against Canada?
I think all players will be playing. I mean, Charlie McAvoy, there's some questions around him, but I think you can expect to see Austin Matthews and Matthew Tkachuk. But for Team USA, it was the physicality and how they controlled the neutral zone against Canada.
All right, PK Subban, he was outstanding yesterday on Get Up, and that was just, his speech to the NBA was absolutely outstanding. He got the Pete Sheppard round of applause. I'm sure Mick Colagio was seated, jumping up and down. And Mick Colagio joining us, one of the great hockey writers in the country. And Mick, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I have never been maybe more wrong in my life to think I wasn't going to get caught up in this, or the fans were not going to get caught up in this, and didn't know because of ticket prices that people were going to show up for all of these games. I am blown away. I am all in. As is most of the world coming up tomorrow night. We had 10.1 million just on Saturday night, just in North America alone. Forget the world. I think all eyes focused on the Boston Garden, which I'm assuming you are going to be at tomorrow night. And I envy you, despite the cold weather. I envy you being there. But Mick Colagio, has this exceeded even your expectations? You're as big a hockey guru as I know in the country. Your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yup. I had told I have a lot of religious Bruins season ticket holder friends who really didn't want this tournament. They didn't want the interruption of their season. They didn't want to see the possibility, which has now become reality, that the Boston Bruins have a handful of games here that are must win, and they won't have Charlie McAvoy for them because of this tournament. So that having been said, the game that Charlie McAvoy played against the Canadians in Montreal, and by that I mean Canadians.
Yes,
that's the most inspired hockey I've seen him play in quite some time.
How about the hits? How about the hits on what do you call it? What's
Connor McDavid?
McDavid and Sid Crosby.
The first one, the thunderous check on the sidewall, and then Crosby behind the net. Yeah.
Just amazing. Good
Yeah,
old fashioned.
I think Brady Kachuk was the only guy in that game with more hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to
So
your point,
Brady Kachuk's the only guy in that game with more hits. I'm sorry,
But
I'm stepping over you and you're
exceeded
stepping over me.
everybody's
I'm not sure what's going on.
expectations, right? It's exceeded everybody's expectations. I think, certainly mine. It certainly sounds like. Did you think it was going to be this awesome?
Well, I knew it was going to be meaningful because the U.S. has been dominating the World Junior Hockey Championship, and that's as big a deal in Canada as the Stanley Cup or the Olympics or anything. They take tremendous pride in their teenagers beating everyone else's, and the U.S., not just anybody, not random, but the U.S. is starting to become the dominant country for 18 to 20 hockey. So. They haven't had a chance to have best on best because of COVID. So it's been like almost a decade since they've had a best on best, which Canada until Saturday night enjoyed something like a 15-game win streak against the U.S. in that. And now the United States, lo and behold, have done like the World Cup of Hockey in 1996 when they went up there and beat the best in Canada. And that brand new World Cup of Hockey thing they did in the mid 90s. This was obviously you can't call it that without the Czechs involved or the Russians, but the Four Nations, it was a huge showdown and the U.S. won it. So that makes this game. Here's a good example. I decided to take a spin on the secondary market on Sunday night before the matchup for the championship was determined. At that time, the matinee on Monday between Canada and Finland was about the price of a good Bruins game to get in the door and the graduation of the prices escalation
Which
as
is
you get
about
closer
what,
to the ice.
$100, $150?
A little more than that, just a little more. And so then the the night game was factor of 2. U.S. and Sweden was double that price.
Yeah.
The championship was double that price. So 4 times a Bruins game to get into the championship game. And that was Sunday night before it was known that Canada would be the team playing the U.S. I was told after Canada beat Finland, or even during the game when Canada ran out to the 4-0 lead, that price had already jumped over 1,000. What is it now? I haven't looked.
Well, PK Subban said yesterday. PK Subban said it's $1,500 right now.
So it's gone up again. And so that's just to get in the door. So this is like a dream scenario for the secondary market, the organized scalping, ticket scalping. So good for the NHL that this happened. I don't know how owners are going to feel about their teams' best players getting injured in a tournament like this going forward. It made a lot of sense right now with the Olympics next year and without the opportunity to have best on best in so long. But if you do it every year before there's an Olympics going forward, it can't possibly live up to what just happened Saturday night in Montreal or what may happen tomorrow night in Boston. It can't live up to all of that every time. So I think that the emerging sentiment will be we don't want our best players getting hurt. The Bruins may not have a season that matters, but it's Brady Kachuk also got hurt, and Ottawa is probably going to make the playoffs. So so this is Matthew is questionable, but apparently going to play. Matthew's apparently going to play. This situation is what if you were an Edmonton fan? I think that they care so much about this that they're probably just praying a lot, but they need this win. So this is a huge game coming up tomorrow night in Boston.
And what's really interesting, and Quinn Hughes been called up, obviously Mike Sullivan. Unlike the NBA where they think nobody can replace LeBron James because everybody's on vacation, here you have the defending Norris Trophy winner last year, as best defenseman in the NHL, who's not even on the team to start.
No, he was injured. He would have been on the team. He's injured.
Okay.
But he's recovered to a point that they think he can. They think he might be. They think he can play, and he's a great hockey player. This kid.
He is.
So
he's going to score the game-winning goal if he's playing. You heard it here first. This is what happens. If the Americans win and he's able to play, you watch. I think he's going to score the winning goal. That's my prediction.
I will remember that always.
But were you able to attend both games the other day?
Yeah. And the guy and TD Garden was the coldest it's been ever. And it's almost 30 years. It's almost 30 years old now. The new arena is almost 30 years old, the new Garden, and it's the coldest. I understand that, humidity is more the enemy of hockey ice than heat.
Of course.
So when it's rainy, drizzly, raw kind of day outside, I always expect a cold building, and I don't expect to take my jacket off very often in there. And it used to be that the fans would come in and heat the place up.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on because all we got is a dry, cold winter going on here, except for when we have a snowstorm and or a slush storm, as we had in southeastern Mass.
Four letter words I hate. I mean,
well,
5 words. Yeah.
Well, we have, this has been a grueling winter, and for temperature, if nothing else, even our sunny days are just frigid, and somehow that building was the coldest I've ever been in it. And I wasn't the only one who thought this.
You've been to a lot of 1 o'clock with some of our matinee games during the winter, but wow, that's saying a lot coming from you.
Well, it's just people also were saying it to me, and so it's.
Was it worse at night?
It was real.
Did it get worse for the night game?
I don't know. From a subjective standpoint, probably yes, because the day was so long and the building never warmed up. So it from that standpoint, it felt longer and longer and longer and colder because of that. So you would think with the crowd, and you forget about it during the games, but not really. So it's been a little like going to a winter classic, this event.
Hey, remember the first one we went to at Fenway against the Flyers? It was warm. It was like 50 degrees that day.
It was. What's weird is they had the day after they put the rink in.
Yeah.
They had the Bruins alumni skate.
You played
with
on that
legends of the legends of there was a game as well that I wasn't even told about it, so I didn't play in it. I was not invited specifically. But I did skate at the media event, which was with the Bruins alumni. Bobby Orr was on the ice. The incredible one was Milt Schmidt was on the ice because it was about 8 degrees. It was sunny and about 8 degrees, and the ice was horrible. It was horrible. I'm thinking they're going to play the Winter Classic on this. I don't know how they're going to get this rink in shape. Well, when they had an event a couple of weeks later and several high school and college hockey games later, a couple of days before the event involving Bruins and Flyers alumni, had a great skate around a much better rink with Joe Watson, who had won the stand. Broke in with Bobby Orr and the Bruins in the last year of the 6-team NHL, and then was drafted by the Flyers in the expansion, in the 67 expansion, and won the Cup with the Flyers twice. So Joe Watson, wonderful guy, actually came out with a book recently. Just a great hockey, veteran hockey to engage if you ever get the opportunity. Skating that day, they had a much better rink to work with. And then the day of the game, I'm sure the ice was a little different where the shadows were, as opposed to, because that thing was running first to third base the first time in 2010. They changed it for the more recent Winter Classic in 2023 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, where they ran it the direction of the football field, which is third base dugout to right field bullpen, a parallel to the first base line. That's how they ran the rink for this last Winter Classic at Fenway. So
that's and the reason why I'll never forget that particular game was I was doing a show for WEI that day across the street, and my co-host was Gary Doak. And
that's awesome. I love Gary Doak. Huge fan. R.I.P. to the great Gary Doak.
So the interesting thing was after the show, I'm like, I'll probably see you upstairs. And he goes, no. He goes, nobody invited me. I go, what? nobody invited you. I said, come with me. So I had my credential, but all the security people at Fenway knew where I was. I just brought him up to our luxury box, which was one of the best ones at the time, right above third base. So you could see
best view for a Winter Classic is that balcony right there.
Brought him and his wife up, and they had a ball. But I said, nobody invited you? So I said, I'm inviting you. I mean, come up and drink and eat. And
you are the man.
He loved it.
I'm glad that happened, and I'm glad it was you.
Yeah. I was like, are you serious? I just went. So I just went, and it might have even been, God rest his soul, John Meter Perel's dad, who was around there that time, because I believe I saw him, and he said, I said, I always call him Mr. M. I said, Gary Doak. He said, yeah, of course. I said, I'm coming. Yeah, go ahead. Go up to whatever it was, the 5th floor, whatever it is. And the security guys, and I had brought family members up there before without passes or anything like that. They're always very good. And, nobody got out. But I said, no, Gary Doak and his wife are coming in with me to the EI luxury box. And they had a ball. I mean, they really did. And it was a great game to boot. And it was warm. It was comfortable. You could sit outside or even have the windows open like we did. It was a very comfortable, kind of a drizzly day, but nevertheless, we had a ball. But I love Gary Doak.
Gary Doak is awesome, underrated hockey player. I was at Game 3 of the '78 final, last row of Causeway side, row M of the stadium. And so many people were just yelling shoot when he had the puck at the right point at the beginning of that game. And he hit this shot that was just off speed, kind of a flimsy shot, and somehow got between Dryden's legs, and the place went nuts. It's the loudest I ever heard Boston Garden. And the Bruins went on to win that game 3-4 zip and make that a series. They're the only team to take the dynastic Montreal Canadiens of the late 70s to 2-2 and a best of 7, and they did it twice.
Yep.
Gary Doak, baby.
He says Gary Doak owned the Force. Yeah, well, he used to hang out in the North End a lot, and I can't remember, the names escape me. The last restaurant on the corner, Mick, Causeway, and
the Force?
Not the Forest. Before that, a block away on the other, there was an Italian restaurant in the North End, right there.
You mean Massimino's?
Not Massimino's.
Massimino's. They're on the North Washington on the corner. Pocari's was on the corner back in the 70s, and then Massimino's was
the other big one. The big one that had the huge bar and everything at it, right near Massimino's, right like 100 feet away. I can't remember the name.
Joe Tetschies.
Joe Tetschies.
Yeah.
Gary was, because I used to go there a lot after, when I lived up the street and could walk. Those were the
Parmenter.
Right. Yes, Parmenter Street, and I had a house on Prince Street at one point too, a condo. But after any Bruins game, we used to all meet at, not the Fours, at Joe Tetschies. It was great. They treated us, and that place was a who's who of athletes and stars and everything else. And Joe was always great at treating everybody the same, but he knew who you were if you were in the media, if you were a player and everything else, and he'd take pictures with everybody. But that was fantastic. I wanted to get into what did you see what PK Subban said yesterday on Get Up about the NHL, comparing it to the NBA?
No, I did not.
Okay, I'm just going to play a little snippet for you because I want you to have a point of reference here. It was absolutely outstanding stuff. He's he's the only, besides Guy Lafleur, the only Canadian that I really, really like. But listen to this. I mean, you
need to get out more.
Montreal Canadian. I'm talking about a player. I mean, it's the playful rivalry that we have as Bruins fans with Montreal. I don't mean Canadian.
Oh, we're gonna contextualize this correctly. I'm sorry.
Yes, exactly. So Guy Lafleur and PK Subban, my two
Ivan Conway, baby.
And I respect them.
Pete Mahavlich.
No, it's Steve Rooney because he was from Canton. That's about it. All right, so here's how to listen to this conversation.
Heard what Giannis says. He says, hey, I think what we should do is, let's say, the world take on the American players in the NBA. Kind of somewhat sort of what are you doing in the NHL? What do you think?
Well, listen. Hockey's a different sport from the NBA. You can't compare the cultures because of the way the game is played. You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey. You can't. Like the culture of our sport, you have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice. That's what fans are investing in. So for us, When we charge $1,500 for a ticket to come to foreign, fans know what they're getting. Cale Makar, the best defenseman in the world, wasn't in the lineup for this game. This was the most viewed game that we've had in years. And you see it, it's because it's not just based on the skill and talent. It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you. I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money. What, you're injured? Well, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference. In hockey, we play hurt. We play injured. That is the culture of the sport. It's always been that way. So you want to talk about the business, the CBA. Fans get all of that. But what do fans resonate with? They resonate with what's real. You got to fight sometimes for your country. You got to compete. You got to go out there and leave it on the ice because those people are paying the price of admission. So fans know whether our stars are on the ice or not, they're getting their money's worth. The NBA has that issue that they got to work on. You got to create a better culture for your players. It starts with the leaders. This issue, there was no issue when Jordan was around. There was no issue when Kobe was around. There's no issue when Sidney Crosby's around. There's no issue when Wayne Gretzky was around because those are true leaders. They lead by example. Sidney Crosby, Hockey Canada, those players, both Canada and U.S., it was the players that did that for the four nations. That's not the league. The league set it up, but the players went out there and decided and said, you know what, boys? We're all in. When is the NBA going to do that? Because, I haven't sat down and watched the NBA consistently since Kobe. Since Kobe has died, I have not sat down and watched the NBA consistently. I love basketball, love the players. I think LeBron's great. I think KD's great. Steph Curry, love watching them. But you got to be on the court. You got to be there, and when you're there, you got to go all in. The fans got to feel that they're getting their money's worth. And right now, there's a big difference between what the NHL's doing with those events and what the NBA's doing. Four Nations works because the players are all in.
Now, Mick, and I'm going to want to get your response to that, but I will say this, my little preamble. So I was talking about this early in the show. I agree with 99.9% of the stuff he said. I also remember back in the day when the NHL All-Star Game, like the NBA All-Star Game, meant something. I remember I was talking about Mike Liut in the 80s, early 80s with the Blues, winning MVP, I think, in a 5-3 win by the Campbell Conference over the Prince of Wales back then. It used to mean something. The one thing I wish he forgets, because there was that period of time where the NHL All-Star Game was as big of a farce as the NBA, where we were getting 19-7 scores, 18-12. I mean, it got to be ridiculous to the fact that we didn't even need goalies. It was a short period of time, but nevertheless, it was there. It got ridiculous, like the NBA All-Star Game is now. But at least the NHL has been proactive and corrected it. You agree?
I think there's a couple of things going on here. You are right. And I look at the labor climate of the early 90s and the strike of 91, 92, the lockout of 94, 95, and that only yielded a rookie salary cap. And then the owners and the players were at war. So there was no passion for an event that only benefited the NHL. And so they tried to do this thing where they had the North American versus Europe. Those were the most passionate All-Star weekends. Yep. And they didn't stay with it because they didn't want to see the injuries, because they didn't want the passion in there. So they expanded it to be kind of like a celebration, a weekend, a skills contest, and all this stuff. And has not been able to sustain itself. So it's not as though hockey hasn't had its own issues. On the PK Subban side of this, I've talked to the PK. And he grew up in Toronto, but he played basketball. He was the point guard on his high school basketball team, but he played hockey, and he was more religious about hockey. That was his sport. But he was a good basketball player. His older sister owns the all-time scoring record for the province of Ontario in college basketball.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And his father, I believe, played in the ABA. There is a huge basketball culture in his family. He loves basketball. So he speaks as somebody who's not rah-rah hockey, hate basketball. Not at all. PK grew up with the hoop. He loves it. He was good at it, but hockey was his number one. He grew up in Toronto. How else is it going to be? So that's what he did, and he became a great hockey player, just a tremendously explosive and emotional hockey player. who did really bring it every night. I very rarely ever saw PK mail it in. Now, I don't know as much as I can say about the culture of hockey, as it plays obviously a big role in this. But let's also remember that Canada hasn't had an opportunity to have best on best because of COVID. It's been almost a decade, and they starving for best on best because the U.S. has become the predominant junior hockey team in the world.
Yeah.
They have become the dominant teenage hockey, and that's as important to Canada as the Stanley Cup, the World Junior Championships.
And also all those under 19, all those under 17 teams, United States, they're all doing really well.
USA hockey is dominant, and because of that, Canada needs this tournament. If it's still going to be our game, then they need this tournament. And so to lose Saturday night, that's in their building, that's a huge thud. They're going to be back in Boston. They desperately want to repay the favor, and they're going to be a more physical team because they know that the USA team is going to be compromised. The Tkachuk brothers both dealing with injuries. Charlie McAvoy's out.
Yep.
Quinn Hughes is coming off an injury. If he can replace McAvoy, if that's the decision that's made, and he's a wonderful defenseman. People hailing Makar as the best defenseman in the world. I say Quinn Hughes is overall. I think he's just a tremendous player. And so to add him to the USA lineup is if he's healthy, then that gives a different kind of a game to US, but it makes him more dynamic offensively. So there's a lot going on with this tournament, but there's a ton of emotion, and the NHL is feeling mighty good about it. And it may become something that we see the year before every Olympics that the NHL players play in going forward. And it could never live up to this, just like none of the Eastern European invasions of North America for tours could live up to the 72 Summit Series, or any subsequent Olympic could live up to the Miracle on Ice.
Sure.
This event that just happened here isn't like, see, this is how you do it. Well, guess what? Hockey's not going to keep doing that either. The players wouldn't survive. It was a powder keg of emotion, physicality, a country's conscience. Canada, they need this. Tomorrow's going to be amazing. It's going to be a heck of a hockey game. I don't know if it's probably not going to unfold anything like the one that we saw last Saturday night with all the fights and all of that. I think everybody's just going to try to play to win, and physicality comes from that. And so PK's right about a lot of what he said, but I really kind of like cringe a little bit when anybody takes a bad snapshot of one sport and juxtaposes it next to the greatest snapshot of the sport that they care more about, because you're not really being, like you just alluded to in talking about the NHL All-Star game and how many times it changed it to try to breathe some relevance and meaning into it and some passion into it. It's just not easy to do. So hey, let's go easy on all of that and just say, hey, great tournament, great game. McAvoy's hurt. It may not affect the Bruins the way they've gone this year, but it could affect other teams. And that, to me, is what I'm paying attention to for talking about whether they're going to keep doing this down the road.
Now, PK does on TNT and also ESPN. They both, I think, do a great job. I think TNT is a little bit better overall. And I remember last week after the Finland game, where I think it was tied 1-1 at the end of the first period, or the U.S. might have been up 2-1. But PK was very critical of Hellebuck on the goalie left in. He's like, they can't let any more soft goals. Well, I don't think he has. So Hellebuck, I think, has played so far a hell of a tournament. And tonight is going to be his biggest test thus far. Agreed?
The U.S. has 3 goalies that are better than anybody Canada has. They're riding Binnington. Binnington can be clutch, as the Bruins fans found out in 2019, in the first period of Game 7. So that guy is capable of great things. He's also capable of giving you something. And rarely does he get through a game where he doesn't give you something.
Yeah.
So can they afford to give anything? I don't think so. So that to me is a question. Hellebuck is a monster. We're not getting him at the end of the season in the month of May in the playoffs when he's played 4,000 games. This is vintage Hellebuck right now. It's got to be his net. And hey, Ottinger wasn't too bad either when he played the other day in Boston. So the other night.
I want to go back to the matinee the other day, or both games. I mean, when I watched, I didn't watch all of the first game. I did watch all of the second game, even though I knew it was more of an exhibition type game. But nevertheless, between Todd Angeli and the national anthem and everybody sing along was just goosebumpish. But what was the crowd like? It looked like it was sold out in the first game. Was it? Obviously, the second game was ridiculous, standing room only, Sardine City. What was the atmosphere like in the first game the other day?
It was actually pretty good. I mean, there were the seats were sold everywhere, but I saw a lot of spaces between people. But then I looked again after the game was, maybe half hour into the first period, and it was looking pretty full. So as I knew, Bruins fans had very little interest in this, and I imagine the percentage of Bruins season ticket holders who bought and used their tickets is probably under 5%, maybe under 10. But it was a huge event for international.
You think they're regretting
hockey.
that now, those season ticket holders? You think they're regretting that now?
I don't know. I mean, it's probably would not have been. They could have I don't know if there was policy like you can't buy and sell these. You have to use them if you buy them. I'm not sure what the deal was there, but what I am sure of is that there was a ton of fans from all over the world there. There was a lot of fans came down from Canada, a lot of fans of their American teams. Saw Red Wings sweaters, Devils sweaters. Any player who was in the tournament, a lot of their fans made the pilgrimage. A lot of people bought up tickets to come and see this thing from all parts of North America and from the participating countries in Europe. So it was just really cool to be in an international scene right in your own backyard. It was a lot different. Media was huge, contingent.
I was going to ask you about that. What was it like up on the ninth floor?
Yeah, ironically, I was put back where I used to sit. I was down in the Zamboni corner for the first time since COVID. Since they reopened the NHL in 21 with no fans, I've been down in the same side of the ice, but in the western northwest corner instead of the northeast corner, which is the Zamboni corner. But I was there for the Zamboni corner. I was there for probably since 1995. So since it opened, so that was a little different to be back in that corner of the rink. Other than that, it's just people were. I don't know if you know Bridget Prue from WEEI.
Yes.
She's from Attleboro.
Yep. I know.
Wonderful young
right?
play-by-play announcer and a radio person and a reporter.
Yes.
Yeah, terrific. Well, she put out a social media bite to people that the parking is going to be, they're going to hit you twice if you go to the night on Monday.
I saw that. I said, typical.
Well, you know what's funny? I parked slightly up the street on Stanford.
Get a spot
and at a $40 lot. And I was there all day and night, and I was charged $40.99.
What about the Brinks lot? The one at the end of Prince Street. What if you get there early enough? That shouldn't be more than 40.
I never go down that way. There's some options and stuff. But some certain garages, depends what time you get in there and stuff. If they're far enough away from TD Garden or North Station that you are not getting an event charge. But then my plan will be different for tomorrow night as I'll go to my trusty little garage where I like to park. Everybody's got their survival tactic. And by the way, the orange line points north from North Station to Oak Grove was down for this tournament. It's been down. What? Yeah, they're running buses. So if you're orange lining it,
even worse. You might as well drive in.
Yeah, if you're coming from my end, from Forest Hills, then you'd be okay. So it's just been, I know. It's just it's been a real rough go for transportation.
No, because parking for the orange line over there is what, $10 maybe? and then you just take the T in. You take the
Yeah,
hour in the North Station.
that's kind of it. Yeah,
But then if
you're
it's not
about
working,
right. You're within a buck or two of being right about that.
if you got a
It
bus
might
in,
be the other way.
but you got a bus in. What's the difference of driving it? It'll take you freaking 2 hours to go 2 miles.
Well, it can. Some days you just don't know. There's been some weird times lately with Boston traffic. It's unpredictable, and they do a terrible job of letting you know when there's construction. They tell you what you're into once you're trapped in it, which does you no good. So a lot of times I just drive through the woods. I'll go out Jamaica Way, VFW, and wiggle my way through West Roxbury. Stop at the Putterham Grill for a pastrami, whatever it takes.
Oh, I love that place. Oh God, now you're making my mouth water. I love that.
Yeah.
Place.
Well, it's awesome. So
I was with Maloney last night, and he's like, he said the only little mini gap you have if you're driving, because he comes up from Marshville, but the only mini gap you have is between, he said, like 11:15 and 1 p.m. You might be able to get in somewhat on time if you're heading into the city. Other than that, he said you're screwed. Doesn't matter what time of day or night.
And some days just absolutely defy, any logic or rationale. Rush hours are longer. They're less defined. It's tough. It's tough.
Have you heard is President Trump coming tonight? There was talk that he might, in which case you're really screwed traffic-wise.
Boy, that's a tough one, because if something like that happens, then if there's one thing that I would love to have seen happen when TD Garden went through what they billed as the legendary transformation, they were doing this during COVID. Their ninth floor is so much nicer than it was back in the day. It has, like, some sections have 3 rows. There's a drop down row. There's an upper row. There's a mail slot row that's really high, so it looks like you're in the last row of the old Boston Garden, where the balcony slumps down and cuts off anything above the boards. So
is the dent in the wall still there when I threw the chair at it after we lost to Buffalo in overtime when nobody saw me except a couple people?
You know something? I'll have to go find that. I'll have to go find that, because everything seems to have been done over. You hardly would recognize the 9th floor anymore. They knocked out the east wall, so you can now look out from the 9th floor look past at Bunker Hill. You can. They knocked out the front of the building to connect it with a new structure to widen the concourse levels and the amenities, and have a new, a 1920, 1924 club.
It's amazing.
1920, maybe it's 1928.
But Mick, when we see those shots for the Bruins and the Celtics, the beginning when TNT or ESPN nationally in there, or ABC, whatever, and they show everybody walking up the steps, Elaine and I were talking. She's like, "This looks like Disney. It looks like Disney World." I mean, it looks nothing like. Not even close. You would not think you were walking up to the garden. It looks like a ride at Disney World with all the beautiful colors and everything, and the way it looks is beautiful. But I kind of miss the old stinky stench and gum on the bottom of your shoe a little bit. But it is amazing how it looks.
That's been replaced by a cloud of marijuana. You have to hold your nose for about 20 seconds while you're walking through that, and then you get inside the North Station and you're probably fine. So if there's such a thing as a contact buzz, you'll get it. There's the Bob Orr statue greets people to the escalators. Mm-hmm. And it's got a lot of lights there, and there's a Big Night Live nightclub right next door. There's high-rise buildings around it, restaurants. There's a food court now, and it's become a destination for Bruins fans. Whether or not you have tickets, it's a whole different world than the one that you left, Pete.
Let me ask you this. John Mita-Perrell was on me last week. He'll be on with me, I think, tomorrow. He went to the Beanpot Finals. BU's win, 4 win over Boston College, and said 2 drinks cost, I think he said $52, or he got 2 turkey sandwiches and 2 sodas, $52, and then 2 drinks were like $60. $60. Are the prices that outrageous now at the Garden? I mean, this bad.
I heard it truly cost something like $14. So I mean, I know most of the fans I know make sure that they're all done eating when they get there. Yeah. And, enjoy the game, leave, and maybe grab something across the street. So, with the 4s gone from Canal Street, the atmosphere has completely changed around North Station, and now the place has come alive in a whole different way with all these things that you didn't used to see. And you got a concert venue embedded in a building next to the garden. It's in the front of the garden is no longer defined. There's no longer that big beige wall facing out with a blank stare as it had for so many years over the parking lot there at Boston Garden. Used to stand 9 inches in front of the quote unquote new building that's almost 30 years old now. So construction began over 30 years ago. So these new buildings are not so new anymore. The renovations are really important, and Boston TD Gardens had an excellent one. It did come with a couple of sections in the loges that they jammed in another seat to certain rows that fans weren't happy about. I guess that means we all have to go on a diet. Right. So, but other than that, it's a much nicer building than the one I remember opening in '95. It's got some identity to it now.
That's great. Well, people want, before, again, I've said this, but people, Pete throwing chairs, Joey B says, we need the backstory. Well, it was an afternoon playoff game. Bruins lost. Was it game 6 or 7 that we lost to Buffalo? That was who was in the Axelson? PJ Axelson was called for having a skate in the blue area at the time.
Oh, okay, all right. Let me reset you then.
Reset.
The series to which you refer was a year before they lost to Buffalo. This was against the Washington Capitals.
Washington.
And it was the Adam Oates, Joey Juneau Washington Capitals who had done the blockbuster with the Bruins in the disastrous season before. So the Bruins now had Jason Allison, Anson Carter, and so Byron. So there, Olaf Kolzig is in the Washington net, and Tim Taylor's skate in overtime of Game 3, I believe it was, had reached the red outline of the crease, and PJ Axelson scored from the doorstep, lifting the puck in the open side. Kolzig was nowhere near Tim Taylor. But because the letter of the law was the status quo of the day at that time, the goal was taken off the board, and Washington won the game, wound up going up 3-1. The Bruins wound up grinding the series back to Boston, where Brian Bellows won it in overtime at the Garden. So they won 2 overtime games at the Garden. That one and the clincher in Game 6. But Harry Sinden wound up saying to us after that game in the Bruins locker room that, now don't go saying that he said this, but when I'm not telling you this is what happened, but I'm saying that it looked like they now my words, a conspiracy. And so, of course, they levied a $25,000 fine on him, which was later rescinded. And that's how the playoffs ended that year. But it was a positive year for the Bruins, a 91-point year with Pat Burns behind the bench and about 11 new players, including NHL rookie PJ Axelson.
Yeah, so that was he and I used to have cigars at Stanzi after many times after Bruins games. He lived right down the street from me, as a lot of Bruins did. But the chair thing is, after they disallowed and people started to walk down the elevator, and I couldn't do. I was so fucking pissed. And when you're in the media, you have to act so much accordingly. But we used to sit in an area that wasn't really heavily guarded at the end, and people had already started to make their way down. I got so pissed, I took one of the chairs, I flung it against the wall, and it's smashed. Or busted.
And you went right through the plaster, huh? Right through the whiteboard.
It was a pretty good dent, and it's unprofessional on my part. But nobody was around. Nobody really saw it. Mike Petraglia might have saw it, but he would have done the same thing. But
he probably wanted to do the same thing. I wish I had $1 for every time Mike Petraglia came up to me after a hard luck goal against a Boston goalie and got right in my face and said, "Mick, that goal was horseshit. You got to have that."
Mike's great. I had Mike on the other day. He's covering the Reds out in Cincinnati. He's having a ball. And he just got engaged, by the way.
Congratulations to Trags. What a great guy.
He got engaged too. He got engaged.
Good for him. Oh, by the way, I saw Per Johan Axelson recently at a Bruins game, and he was donning a man bun, and I'm like, and he had the sides of his head was shaved, and he had a man bun. And I'm looking at him. I'm saying, "Wow, Axie, what's going on, buddy?" He's like, he goes, "I just turned 50. I'm going through my midlife crisis." And we're getting old. Oh yeah. So we're getting old when guys like him are at this point, in their life, and yet I saw his career soup to nuts as an adult, and I'm thinking like, wow, Jean Beliveau and Bobby Orr played in my first game, and Orr had a crew cut. So I guess it's times are moving along here.
Well, his rookie year, and again, I mean, we shared many stories and cigars after Bruins games. A lot of times, 11 o'clock, midnight, around there into the wee hours of the morning. But he told me he's one of my favorite Bruins of all time, not just because of that, but he just told some great stories that I can't repeat any of them, but just absolutely hysterical. He spoke sort of broken English back then. He wasn't. I'm sure he's much better now. Just like Ray
he
Moore.
acted in the locker room like he didn't understand the questions.
Oh yeah,
but he knew how to play. He was coached well on how to play the game.
Absolutely, Mick. Thanks so much. Enjoy tomorrow night. I can't even imagine what time you're going to get there. Fairly early, and just soak it all in. I hope it's a little warmer for you.
After the discussion we had about Boston traffic, I don't know if it's possible for me to tell you what time I'm going to get in there. No matter what time I start, you just don't know. It's still like the Bruins this year. If they score 5 goals, they're going to give up 6. If they play a really great defensive game, they're still not going to outscore their mistakes if they're playing anybody good. So,
any prediction?
Yeah. Wow, I get in trouble at times like this. But you know what? I could never have predicted what I saw Saturday.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I think I'll stop short of thinking that, throwing a guess. It'd be a wild guess.
Flip a coin.
Flip it. It's
Yeah,
I mean,
it
how
is.
do we really know?
Even in Vegas, it's -110 both sides.
Well, there you have it. Okay. So I agree with them. That's my prediction is a bet is probably a bad one.
And no shootouts. I think they'll play if it goes to.
Well, one thing is I always felt that one thing is even though U.S. won their showdown game, Austin Matthews is kind of this hybrid kind of a player, likes to make his own shot, shoot the puck, drift around, act like a winger more than a center, even though he plays center because he's so great at taking the puck from opponents, a little like Mario Lemieux. So he's a dominant hockey player. But I do feel at times like the team concept is a little different, a little difficult. And I do feel like he's had a little bit of a hard time trying to find his rhythm playing with a bunch of star players. And so I'm not really sure. At the end of the day, I never bet against Canada in my head because they have such a embarrassment of riches at the center position, which is where the hockey games are generally won. The biggest hockey games are almost always won there. Hey, Barkov and Bennett last year, Lundell, no slouch. Just a Joey Stenlund. That's a hell of a hockey team. And now they're not all together anymore. But those are the kinds of teams that most consistently win is strength down the middle. So help me, Harry Sinden. So, Bergeron, Krejci, for all those years, Crosby, Malkin, all those years, Yzerman, Forsberg, Sakic, Forsberg, Yzerman, Fedorov, Modano, Neuendijk. The only way you beat that model is if you have the big three, like Stevens and Niedermeyer and Rafalski in front of a goalie like Brodeur, and St. Louis did it to the Bruins with Pietrangelo, Parayko, and Baumeister, and clutch play from Binnington. So they need clutch play from him, and they need to be the better team down the middle. And they got the horses to be that team. So it's hard to imagine them losing a game they absolutely have to have.
So, all right, Mick Colagio, you can check him out at rinkwrapmc.com. I assume you're going to be blogging and posting on Twitter and X during the game and Boston Hockey News, BostonHockeyNow.com. So
I'm a friend of Boston Hockey Now, but I no longer contribute to Boston Hockey Now.
Okay.
So, but you can also find me in the Hockey News when they do their, you'll see the prospects, the Future Watch. If you pick that up, then the Bruins article, I don't pick those prospects. I kind of fill out what is decided between the editors there and pro scouts, amateur scouts.
Awesome, Mick, you're the man. Thank you so much. This was great. I could talk to you about all this stuff until the face-off on Thursday, but then you'd be late getting to the Garden. Good luck, and I hope they feed you well for this championship game, also, and media-wise. And we'll talk to you.
I've been underwhelmed so far.
What are they charging you, real quick? What are they charging you now to eat for the media?
Oh, if the Bruins are running the show, it's a very good meal with multiple choices in a bar where they either cutting up a roast beef or serving pasta or whatever the night is going on, and that's $10, and it goes to the Boston Bruins Foundation, which is a wonderful thing that Charlie Jacobs started back, over 20 years ago. And Bob Sweeney was instrumental on that, in making that happen and looking to increase fan engagement. And their meeting spawned this, and it's a charity that's raised over, I think it's like over $60 million. It's incredible what they've been able to do through the Boston Bruins Foundation, and this is where that money goes. So I'm happy to do that and tip the help, but the NHL is running this show, so everything is different, and it is what it is. And it's not quite the media bonanza that it was 25 years ago covering an NHL event.
I still miss walking into the media room, Madge behind the thing, always tip her $5. It was all free back then. It wasn't bad, really. I thought you'd see some people, media members, come in and take like 10 pieces of cake and go in the corner. But I just miss watching Johnny Busick and Mill Schmidt playing cribbage. They inspired me how to learn. I used to go, what are they doing? They were always the first ones there. The cribbage board was going, yelling at each other, or this, that, and the other thing. Those are the memories that I have.
Those were the days. Yeah, I got stories I can't tell even on this show.
All right, my friend, all the best. Enjoy tomorrow night. The entire world's going to be watching, and we'll be looking. I'll be retweeting some of your stuff. I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun for you. Right? I can't wait.
I might not write a lot. I might be busy watching the game.
I agree.
I hate to miss games writing.
I agree. All right, Mick, we'll talk soon. We'll talk next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on, Pete.
Thanks a lot. That's Mick Colaggio right there on the closing out the Pete Sheppard Show. No Martinez and company today. Thanks to Mick Colaggio, Bill Sparrows, Angel. Anything else? What else is coming up on the network today before we say au revoir?
Sure. It was always a great segment with Mick. It's always fun. No matter what, it's always fun with Mick. So coming up later on will be the Drive with Q, my hermano Rich Quinones. He'll be on at 5 p.m. this evening, followed by Beebs World at 6, a little after 6. Sometimes my hermano runs a little bit over. And that'll be it. Talking to Hoops will not be on today. One of the coaches that reached out to me and says she is under the weather. So she will not be available tonight. So Talking Hoops will resume next week.
Sounds good, Angel. Thanks so much for everything. I'm back tomorrow morning from 7 to 10 right here on the Coastal Sports Network. Have a full show lined up for you again. And Angel will have to wait until about 3 o'clock before I confirm all my guests and give you my usual afternoon tweet to you, or text to you, I should say. So have a great and safe rest of your Wednesday, hump day, everybody. I am Pete. I'm back tomorrow at 7 a.m. on the Coastal Sports Network. See ya!